We are back. It is episode 74 of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. My name is Josh. As always, I'm here with Troy. Troy drove from Iowa to Minnesota today. Fun Sunday for you, Troy.
Fantastic Sunday.
Well, you get to talk hockey cards now. It's only going to get better from here. Okay, it's a huge show. Very big show. Masterclass is back. We're kind of doing once a month now. We've been working on this one for a while. Today is the premiere of part 2 of our The Cup Masterclass with Mitch Gropman, who did a fantastic job, and we're super excited for you guys to hear it. Also, later this month, the 5th installment of Hockey Cards 101 will premiere too. This one will be all about having healthy collecting experience, and we've enlisted the help of Rob Gerard, who many probably know as the sports card therapist, to help us out with this one. So again, that one will be towards the end of the month. Last thing before we get started is a reminder that the Hockey Cards Gong Show is a Patreon podcast. That means we rely on supportive listeners like you to help us cover our expenses and really make our show possible, produce hopefully more and better hockey card content, and help us fund initiatives, even in a small way, to grow the hockey hobby. Right now, you can take advantage of our out of 99 support level tier, and for $5 a month, support the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast. I think there's now less than 20 left, something like that. So it's dwindling down. You also get exclusive access to our Gong Show Discord server, where you can chat with us on a daily basis and participate as an insider in our show. It's super easy to do. All you have to do to support us is go to the hockeycardsgongshow.com website and click on the Become a Patron link. Or you could go to the Patreon website at patreon.com and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. There's a link in the show description for whatever podcast app you're listening to us on right now. And finally, in our link tree, which you can find in our TikTok and Instagram profiles, there's a link there. Troy, since our last show, we have 2 new patrons, so we want to thank from the bottom of our hearts for helping us to support our show. Now this one you got to go slow because it's an awesome name, but we discussed this right before we started recording. Panaranoid Android.
Love it.
Love it. Very creative, great name. And then SC19 Cards. Thank you guys both for becoming patrons and, again, supporting our show. All right, Troy, what's the game plan?
On today's show, we begin with the greatest player to wear number 74. Then we take a look at who's hot and who is on the struggle bus. Next, we take a look at the NHL playoffs and some specific hockey card hobby takes on each series. Then it's off to hobby news. This is followed by part 2 of our masterclass on the Cup with Mitch Gropman. As always, Mitch provides us with fantastic information on Cup releases, and this time it's from 2010/11 through 2015/16. We then end the show with new product releases. All right, Josh, hockey's most famous 74, per the Hockey Writer's greatest player to wear each number article, is TJ Oshie.
We have a decision to make with this one. Do we want to get into the whole War Road thing? We can decide on the fly, but it may be worth opening the eyes to some people about War Road hockey a little bit.
Yeah, I'll get into it. I'll read this first part, and then we'll get into that.
Okay.
All right, Oshie is a center/right wing from Everett, Washington. Oshie was the 24th overall pick in the 2005 NHL entry draft by the St. Louis Blues. However, Oshie did move to War Road, Minnesota his sophomore year of high school, and played 3 seasons at War Road High School. Now, with Oshie moving, I think I read that actually his parents were divorced, and I believe his dad and uncle might have lived in War Road already. Don't quote me on that. But I think they had that connection to War Road, or they might already been from War Road. But what Josh mentioned about War Road hockey is, if you ever look on a map, and you see where War Road, Minnesota is, it's way up north by the Canadian border in Minnesota, this tiny, tiny little town. I'm not sure the population, but somehow they always have these really good hockey teams on the girls and the boys side. And you start doing a little dig in, and there's one really big company up there, Marvin Windows, that somehow, it's not all the time. I'm not saying every single player, but when these good players come in, magically somehow a parent is working at Marvin Windows. And it's kind of an interesting scenario. Josh, you might have more
Christian
on that.
Brothers too, right?
Yep.
Like the Christian Brothers from the 80 Miracle on Ice. So there is a steep and deep hockey history in War Road, but it is the smallest town on earth, and they produce big, big, big hockey talent repeatedly, and somehow families always end up moving there and find jobs.
That's that. But I will say one awesome thing that War Road does is their ice rink is open 24 hours. And if no one's using it, you're free to go on and skate and play. I wish more communities did that, but of course, every other community is probably paranoid they're going to get sued for something. But that's a really cool thing that they do up there. Oshie has played in 958 regular season games over a 15-season NHL career. Oshie started his career playing 7 seasons with the St. Louis Blues before being traded to the Washington Capitals. He has played the last 8 seasons with Washington. For awards and accomplishments, he is a one-time Stanley Cup winner in 2018 with the Capitals. He's also a one-time NHL All-Star Game selection in 2020. I actually thought he had more accomplishments and awards and stuff, but nope, I was wrong. Over the course of his regular season stats, he has 290 goals, 380 assists for 670 points. He has made the playoffs in 12 of his 15 NHL seasons, compiling 34 goals, 34 assists for 68 points and 102 playoff games played. Best season of his career from a point standpoint was his 2013-14 season with St. Louis, where Oshie had 21 goals and 39 assists for 60 points. If you look at Oshie and his career, he has been a pretty consistent point producer. He has scored more than 40 points in 10 of his 15 NHL seasons. So you kind of know what you're getting with him now. Obviously, he's getting older. I believe his stats have tailed off a little bit from there, if I remember right, but I can't remember exactly. And anyone thinking about Oshie widely known as a shootout specialist and is ranked 4th all-time with 48 shootout goals and has a shootout scoring percentage of 48%, which puts him 25th all-time with players with a minimum of 10 shootout attempts. However, if you look at players with over 50 shootout attempts, Oshie is 2nd all-time in scoring percentage. Obviously, if you know anything else about Oshie, he is often injured. His career has been riddled with injuries. He's had a broken ankle, 4 documented NHL concussions, a broken collarbone, and then the ambiguous lower body injury, which is probably related to some of these. But yeah, consistent point producer, can definitely dangle the puck on shootouts and breakaways. What do you think, Josh? Do you have any fond TJ Oshie memories? Do not bring up the 2014 Olympics. I'm going to get to that.
I have a comment, but I've been holding it with bated breath until then.
Okay. Fun fact time. His proper name is Timothy Leaf Oshie. Thought that was intriguing. I always thought it was just like Thomas James or something. I had to get the TJ. According to a 2009 interview, the nickname TJ was given to him by his mother after she saw the film The Champ, because Oshie reminded her of the main character's son, who is named TJ Flynn. You can thank
Wikipedia. Is a little weird.
You can thank Wikipedia for that one. Who knows if it's just someone messing with us? But
kind of like you just said, it seems like all the time, if somebody's nickname is TJ, it's like Thomas John, or it's their first name, middle initial. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody named TJ whose middle name is Leaf.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think I read it somewhere else that there's another that his TJ name might have came from the name of a relative or something. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard. It's nicknames. It's fun. All right, third fun
Sounds
fact.
Controversial.
Yeah, it is controversial. We'll see if he writes into us and lets us know. Most American hockey fans remember Oshie for his 2014 Winter Olympic heroics in the shootout against Russia in a preliminary game. After the first 3 rounds, the score remained tied between the USA and Russia. However, after the first 3 rounds, if the score is tied in international play, teams could reuse players as much as they wanted. Oshie was subsequently tabbed by Dan Bylsma 5 consecutive times, ultimately converting 4 of 6 shot attempts, including the shootout winner in the 8th round. And I believe the goalie was Bobrovsky, if I remember right. Maybe I'm making that up, but I didn't confirm that.
Bob the Cop, as we learned last episode.
We learned all about why he was named Bob the Cop or whatever. That was
Jay on Ray, or
isn't
that right?
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad people write in and tell us that stuff, though.
I think I had mentioned a handful of shows ago that I had gone up on YouTube with my 14-year-old hockey playing daughter and showed her the shootout from the 2014 Olympics, and had been reminded at the time just how amazing it was. Because it was Pavel Datsyuk and who was the other Russian? Oh, Ilya Kovalchuk, right? That Oshie was going basically back and forth with that entire shootout. Now, here's my main thoughts, I guess, as it relates to the whole spectrum of TJ Oshie is I kind of feel like Troy, he never has lived up to that in the NHL, that moment. He was such a big star after that. Here, do you remember that?
Yep. Oh, for sure. Especially in Minnesota, where we have to remind everyone he went here to high school. But yeah, I agree. He kind of, he was a superstar after that Olympics, but it never kind of, he's still, like I said, he's just a consistent over 40 point producer usually. But his last couple seasons have been injury filled and less points. But yes, I agree.
And hey, if I ever had a moment like that in my life, and that was the penultimate sort of accomplishment in my career, I would take it too. So I'm not trying to be too critical. It just feels like he couldn't match that significance in the NHL as he did in the Olympics. But I do, again, strongly recommend, whether it's just for yourself or with your kids that may not have been paying much attention to hockey at the time, to go back, look it up on YouTube. It's awesome, even today, to watch.
All right, last fun fact. Oshie is from the Anishinaabe or Ojibwe Nation. I'm going to go with Ojibwe and make it easy on myself.
It's Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe. All right, Anishinaabe. His name in Anishinaabe, Win, that must be the language, or the Ojibwe language, Kiwe Gabu, means coming home. So
I'm from northern Minnesota, so I can actually, this is stuff I can say. It's Anishinaabe-Moan.
There you go.
Is the language that they
Chad, you read this part. So his name basically, it translates roughly as she/he returns home. And if Gabu refers to the water, this name may evoke the poetic image of water that is traveling downhill and will inevitably find its way home. We've had a couple guys that have had, I don't know what the right term is, Native American or indigenous heritage that we are learning about, because I had no clue.
Well, and that supports the World Heritage, because the Anishinaabe people are from this area. So for him to have an Anishinaabe name or an Ojibwe name makes sense.
Very cool. All right. Oshie's rookie card is a 2008-09 Upper Deck Young Guns, number 218. PSA 10 has a pop of 118 with a gem rate of 44%. It has sold. It doesn't sell that frequently, but it has sold in the last couple of months for anywhere between $100 and $150. His BGS 9.5 copy of his Young Guns has a pop of 109 with a staggering gem rate of 84%. Go figure. There's not too many sales of this copy, but a February 2023 sale via eBay went for around $60.
Okay. TJ Oshie, the greatest player to wear 74,
there we go.
According to someone else. We just go up the list.
The Hockey Writers.
The Hockey Writers. All right, Troy, this is now our last regular season edition of Who's Hot in the Struggle Bus for the 2022-23 NHL season. We're going to start, of course, like we always do, with Who's Hot. And I just had to put Jason Robertson, on the Who's Hot list because, Troy, over the last 2 weeks of the season, Robertson was the NHL's leading scorer with 5 goals, 13 assists for 18 points in 8 games played. That's 2.25 points per game over that stretch. Pretty good. And really, what an amazing, I would call it catapulting season for Robertson, who finished 2022-23 with 46 goals, 63 assists for 109 points in 82 games played. He played all 82 games, which is super impressive for anyone in the NHL, and increased his point production, Troy, last year by over 30 points. That's not bad, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's what we like to see.
That's what we like to see. He established career highs in goals, assists, and, of course, points. Scored now 40-plus goals 2 years in a row, and he's 23 years old. Again, is what we like to see from a hobby trajectory. Plus, Troy, he has the opportunity to put some more fuel in his hobby rocket ship this postseason with, if he plays well. I think his stature only grows. We'll do our hobby awards at the end, or I guess later for the season, but I would think he'll be one of our top candidates for Breakout Star of the Year. He's just been that good. From a hockey cards perspective, Robertson's 2020 Young Gun PSA 10 popped 852 with a 39% gem rate, last sold for $257 on April 13th. That's up 28% in the past month. I think, too, Troy, if you are a Young Gun person or investor, to me, I'm comforted by the lower gem rate on this card.
Yep, agree.
If you're looking for an alternate, though, to a Young Gun, his 2020 OPG Platinum Rainbow PSA 10 Pop 13 also sold on April 13th for $90 US. Not a lot of sales, but not a high pop, right? So I don't know. I think Platinum's continuing to rise, and a Rainbow might be a good option. For the record, too, I just want to point this out, Troy. On March 23rd of this year, someone picked up a 2020 OPG Platinum Retro Rainbow Rookie PSA 10 of Jason Robertson for $36. If you really think and do your research and study and spend time, you can find opportunities to zig when everyone zags and do really good for you. I can't imagine that that person won't do well on that card in the future.
Definitely.
So that's J-Rob for Who's Hot. You got the next one, Troy?
I do. Laurent Brassard. I had to phonetically type that one out, or else I would have sat here and just been a mess. Goalie.
Good.
Goalie, Vegas Knights. Laurent Brassard. Okay, let's talk about it. Vegas, they have had quite the goalie situation this year. We had Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill, who have played the majority of the games this season. However, they are both currently out with injuries. I believe Thompson might be day-to-day, if I remember the last injury report I read. But they both had some time on the injured list near the end of the season.
Yeah, so my Logan Thompson dream died, huh?
How did they have? Hey, it was doing good for the first half of the year. Okay, so we got their two main goalies, got injuries. So what do the Knights do? Go out and acquire Jonathan Quick on March 2nd. In his time with Vegas, Quick is 5 wins, 2 losses. We call it 2 overtime ties with a 3.13 goals against average and a .901 save percentage. I call those okay numbers. Not world-beating, not absolutely horrible, just okay.
A lot better, though, than in L.A., right? He was doing bad.
Just change of scenery kind of thing there. However, let's enter Laurent Brassard. He comes into the picture, and he's clearly put himself in the lead for the starting role. If you look at Brassard's stats starting from March 25th, 2023, which is the first game he played since the Quick trade, Brassard has a record of 6 wins, 0 losses, 1 overtime loss with a 2.17 goals against average and a .923 save percentage. And just to give, very good, and give complete stats here. On the season, Brassard is 7 wins, 0 losses with 3 overtime losses with a 2.13 goals against average and a .927 save percentage. Really, really nice to get hot leading right into the playoffs. You can kind of help your team and try to establish yourself as a starting candidate they have a crop of goalies there, but I ride the hot goalie. That's all I know. Laurent Brassard rookie card, 2014-15. Upper Deck, number 458, Young Guns. Here we go. PSA 10 is a pop of 4. BGS 9.5 is a pop of 6. There are no sales that I could find. So all that to get to the hockey card part of this hockey card show, and I got nothing. You can go buy the raw.
Just means he's a hockey card dark horse candidate.
Yeah, he could. Dark horse. I think he's a little bit older too, though, if I remember right.
Okay, last guy this week in Who's Hot is Jack Hughes. Deservedly so, Troy. We've been talking about the Hughes middle child. That would be Jack quite a bit lately. He went on a tear to end the 2022-23 regular season, putting up in his last 2 weeks 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points in his last 7 games played. Poor Jack finished the season 1 point shy of the century mark. He had 43 goals, 56 assists for 99 points in 78 games played. It is, though, a huge jump from last year, where he had 26 goals and 56 points in only 49 games played. To go from 56 to 99, I'll take that. Given he's 21, 99 points is not that bad either. Remember, too, I think from our last show, if he had gotten to 100 points, he would have been the first player in Devils franchise history to do so. So kind of a bummer there, of course. But there's a pretty good chance, I would say, if he can stay healthy, that he will do it at some point in the near future, given the leap he's taken this year. Icing on the cake, Troy, for Hughes, the final point of the season, he was the primary assist on brother Luke's first NHL goal.
Yay.
In overtime winner last Thursday night in a 5-4 win over the Capitals. They're making Hughes family memories already, Troy. Hockey cards, we know Jack Hughes, of course, is a 2019 Young Gun PSA 10. We covered last show his insane pop count of now a little bigger than 3,118 and still has a 75% gem rate. This card last sold for $266 US, down about 19% in the past month. If you want an alternative hockey card to his Young Guns, which has the 5th most gem mint grades of any hockey card ever, how about Troy, a 2019, again, OPC Platinum Rainbow Color Wheel PSA 10 that has a pop of only 18 that sold for $150 on March 31st. So you could spend $111 less for a pop 18 rookie. Well, there it is. For the last time for the regular season, the struggle bus pulled up. Got to go with Troy. Our first guy, Kent Johnson from your Columbus Blue Jackets, sort of limped across the finish line to end the season by scoring only 2 points in his last 9 games played. In the previous 9-game stretch before that, he had put up 9 points. So a bit of a drop-off there. In Johnson's first full NHL season, he ended up with 16 goals, 24 assists for 40 points in 78 games played. And had maybe the goal of the year with his kind of full-speed Michigan goal from a few weeks ago. That was a pretty awesome goal. Definitely highlight reel. I would say 40 points is not too bad for a 20-year-old in your first season. Overall, too, the Blue Jackets were not good this year. Hopefully he'll be a part of a brighter future for the team, and they'll get some players around him maybe that can help him produce a little bit more, too. He's got a ton of skill. He's young at 20, a lot of talent, decent size. I think he's 6 feet, 180 pounds, something like that. I would love to see him take a big step forward next year. So we'll, of course, have to see what happens. Ken Johnson is a 2022 Young Gun. He's from Series 1. And his PSA 10 popped 90 with a 27% gem rate. Last sold for $100 US. It's up about 11% since the first of the month. Okay, Troy, who else is on the struggle bus with Ken Johnson?
We had to have a goalie join him on the struggle bus. So we got Darcy Kemper is coming on. We don't talk about Kemper a lot. We talk about him every once in a while in previews, but nothing around his hockey cards. But past 2 weeks, Kemper has 1 win, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss with a goals against average of 4.22 and a .877 save percentage. We'll just say this has been an overall disappointing season for the Capitals. You have the hype of Ovi chasing Gretzky's record, and then the Caps just kind of lay a dud during the regular season at the end and didn't make the playoffs. Kemper obviously didn't play his best hockey and struggled. And in fact, from March 14th on, the Capitals went 3 wins, 9 losses, and 3 overtime losses. So not good. They could have maybe made a run and got into the playoffs, but not when you do that at the end of the season. Capitals finished the season 35 wins, 37 losses, 10 overtime losses. Their most losses since 2006-07. They also on Friday released head coach Peter Laviolette. So let's just say this season has not went well, and now it's time to clean house. Kemper for the season had 22 wins, 26 losses, 7 overtime losses, with a 2.87 goals against average and a .908 save percentage with 5 shutouts. Again, nothing exceptional. I think having him come over from Stanley Cup winner Colorado, probably expectations were a little higher, and I think this was kind of a blah season for him.
Makes you wonder if Colorado knew what they were doing by choosing not to bring him back either.
Yep. I liked Kemper when he played for the Wild. I thought he was a good goalie, and I was sad that they got rid of him, and I thought he played well for Colorado, but obviously they saw something, decided to move on, and was probably the right move. All right, Kemper, his rookie card. He has no Young Guns, so add him to your list of current NHL players without a Young Guns. So I will go with his 2013-14 SP Authentic Future Watch out of 1,299. It has a PSA 10 pop of 6. Could not find any sales, though. I'm not doing well on finding sales, except there was a limited parallel out of 25 that sold for $247 on December 1st of 2022. Again, we are a hockey card show, and I brought up 2 guys that I could not find sales on the cards I talked about, on the rookie cards. Not good.
Okay, that is our final Who's Hot in the Struggle Bus for the regular season. We're going to move on and quickly mention Slab Sharks. They are, of course, a Gong Show partner and sponsor, and we want to thank them for helping to make our show possible. This week's Slab Sharks eBay auction is live. So be sure to head over to slabsharks.com for a link to the eBay auction and check out the cards available. I combed through their auction this morning a little bit, Troy, and once again, they have some just amazing hockey cards. Here's a few that I jotted down. There's a 2009 OPC Premier Ovechkin game-used quad patch auto out of 5. All 4 patches are multicolor. Not bad. A 2020 SP Authentic Tim Stützle Future Watch auto out of 999 PSA 10. Auto 10. Talking about Stützle a lot lately. A 2006 SP game-used dual jersey, dual auto, Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe to 25. Pretty good players there. And a 2016 OPC Platinum Mitch Marner Rainbow Color Wheel auto, BGS 9.510. So always some amazing cards. Definitely worth going to slabsharks.com and getting a link to the auction. They will also be set up at the Spring Expo in Toronto this week. So if you're there, you should stop by and learn about their consignment services for Canadian card collectors. They do make it super easy to sell your cards on eBay because, hey, Troy, they do all the work. You don't have to worry about timing the listing, creating it, answering buyer questions, hunting down buyers for payments, and shipping. They even ship to the US. You can sell your cards to a much larger pool of buyers without the hassles of shipping over the border. If you're not going to be at Toronto on the Expo, no worries. You can just, again, head to slabsharks.com for complete info on their consignment services and to get started. Well, the playoffs are upon us. It's our first full playoffs as a show. I think we were talking the other day where we started this podcast somewhere, I think, in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals last year.
Sounds about
Our
right.
first Gong Show, round 1. The round 1 matchups are set. They begin today. And we're going to break them down for you now, give some predictions, and then also throw a hobby slant in there. We'll start with the Eastern Conference, Troy. First series we'll look at is Bruins and Panthers. You want to give your fearless prediction here?
My fearless prediction is the Bruins.
I'm going with the Bruins, too. For each of these, I jotted down some hobby takes, and you can chime in, too, Troy, and react to what my takes are, add your own. I think in this series, Matthew Tkachuk probably has the most to gain from a huge upset. If he plays well and produces, could really notch him up a peg or two in the hobby. Well, maybe into relevancy would be nice for him. Or it also, I don't know, couldn't matter. We've been saying this a lot lately that the state of Florida, so any team there, whether it be the Panthers or Lightning, is sort of the Bermuda Triangle of the hockey hobby, meaning you go there and disappear from relevancy. But it just doesn't make sense how well he's played the last 2 years, having back-to-back 100-point seasons. And so little people seem to chase his cards. I think he has the most to gain if they can pull off the upset. Most to lose, I think, Troy, is Linus Ullmark.
Yep.
If he's going to be a top hobby goalie going forward and not just a guy who's known for a magical 2022 regular season, they got to win. Because I just think he's going to be looked at as sort of a flash in the pan and slide back into obscurity if they get bounced in the first round. What do you think of those takes? Agree, disagree?
Agree, and maybe agree with that, and maybe with the Ullmark take, if he does struggle, maybe Swayman could step in and do something. Okay, so we both had the Bruins over the Panthers. Next Eastern Conference series is Hurricanes versus Islanders. I'm calling the upset here, Troy. I'm going with the Isles. Yeah, a lot of people are calling the upset. When you got Sorokin in net, it's not a bad take. I'm sticking with Carolina. I'm not that confident, but I'm sticking with them. I picked them to win the Cup at the beginning of the season, so I'm going to let it ride.
Okay, yeah, got to stick with your guns there. I am riding Sorokin here for my upset prediction. I think the Isles, they do kind of play a boring defensive style of hockey where might be the perfect recipe for playoff success, especially when you've got Sorokin in net. And I think if he carries the team through a round or two and a couple of upsets, it might be enough to establish him as the consensus number 1 goalie in the NHL if he really isn't there already. I think he has a lot to gain. And then from the Hurricanes perspective, can Seth Jarvis emerge for them and have a playoff breakthrough moment? He's a 21-year-old forward, has had kind of a disappointing season where he actually regressed in goals by only scoring 14 and finished with 1 total point less than last year. You have Svechnikov out for the season, so they're going to be looking for someone to step up. And wouldn't it be nice for the hobby and for 2021 Young Guns collectors if Jarvis could be that spark? Okay, next series is Devils and Rangers. To me, this is a really fun matchup. Other than our Wild, this is one I want to check out a little bit. I'm going with the Devils, but I'll admit I'm kind of picking with my hobby heart here. Who are you going with?
I also chose the Devils.
Looking at my hobby takes here, I think there's a chance with a series win and a strong just overall playoff performance that maybe, just maybe, Jack Hughes could take a big, big leap. He might be, in my opinion, the guy that could potentially take the biggest leap in the playoffs. I mean, he's already on the rise, right? So it's just more of like the Friedman hockey stick acceleration of his hobby relevance. He's so young. We just talked about him. We almost scored 100 points this year. And if he plays well, it could be pretty awesome. I also think sticking with the Hughes family here to potentially add some fuel to the 2023-24 rookies fire. Would an impressive playoffs by Luke Hughes move him up a notch or two in next year's rookie chase, where everyone's talking about consolation prizes to not pulling a Connor Bedard out of a pack? For the Rangers, Troy, I see two players that have both the most to gain and lose this postseason. Looking at Patrick Kane, can he reestablish himself as an elite playoff performer, or is he just going to look old? And then will Shesterkin step it up and make the case why he should still be considered the NHL's top goalie? He was a Vezina winner last year and not even close in the conversation right now. Do you have any other thoughts about the series or players? Or
I would add Lafreniere and Keandre Miller to the list of Rangers that probably need to step up and have good playoffs, especially Laffy. We've been harsh on him. I think he's been playing well or better lately, but it'd be nice to see him have a great playoff series and kind of get people talking about him again from a good perspective, not for how he's kind of struggled this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last series in the Eastern Conference is a big one. It's Maple Leafs and Lightning. Now, Troy, do we dare not pick the Lightning and then show up in Toronto in a couple days?
I know. I'll just say it. I picked the Maple Leafs. But, man, we know how that's went lately, or the past couple of years.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs, too. It feels like I think this is the year. I really do feel like this is the year for them to get out of round one, and that could be the kiss of death for any Maple Leafs fan, I suppose. And we're Vikings fans, so we get it. Very tortured in our existence, too. And to me, Troy, this could be the biggest hobby fork in the road team in all the playoffs. So if the Maple Leafs look amazing in round one and dispatch the Lightning, I think we could see Matthews, Marner, Tavares, etc. really pop off and their prices spike. If they get bounced, though, now what happens? Do these same guys take a hobby hit? And I don't know if it gets erased even at the start of next season. Could there be permanent damage to a guy like Austin Matthews if they especially look bad and get beat up?
I think I'm right on board with the Austin Matthews part, because the crazy thing is I feel like he's just not getting talked about a lot, and he scored 40 goals. But it seems like the season's been down for him. It's just one of those really odd mixes. And if they can move past his first round and Matthews have a great playoff series, I think there's a run for him.
Okay, we're going to move on to the Western Conference here. So the first matchup is the Vegas Golden Knights versus your Winnipeg Jets, Troy. I'm going with the Jets here.
I went with Vegas.
Oh, wow. Do you think, to me, Vegas seems like a weak number one seed? Am I making that up or what?
Maybe. I will say I don't know enough about Vegas. I didn't watch them enough this year. But they are heavily favored if you look at the betting lines on this one. So that would be huge upset. A huge upset if the Jets can pull it off. And the Jets do have a goalie that can do it with Hellebuck.
Yeah, he's super hot goalie.
Yeah.
In fuego right now. Can we go out on a limb and say from a looking at it from the hobby point of view that this is probably the most boring hobby series there is?
Maybe. Yeah, it might be boring, but I think the Vegas goalie situation where I'm sitting there saying the Jets might have a guy that could steal it. We just talked about Laurent Brossoit earlier. And if he ends up starting, what kind of happens with that? Or if Thompson is not injured during the playoffs or whatever his status is, it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I just think it has the lowest potential for breakout players on either team. Yeah. If Hellebuck was younger, then maybe it would be a different story. And he could see a little short-term bump if he continues to play like he has. And like I said, he's the basis of my upset pick anyways. The only other maybe little side note is, can Jack Eichel step it up a little bit? And I feel like his hobby spark is dwindling pretty dramatically right now. And it'd be interesting to see if he could reignite it with some put up some goals in the playoffs. Okay, from potentially the most boring hobby series to Oilers and Kings. You want to give your fearless prediction here, Troy?
I went with the Oilers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Oilers too. Now, do you think this is going to be a close series, or do you think the Oilers are going to easily dispatch the Kings?
My heart tells me the Oilers are going to dispatch them and just run away with this. 4-1, 4-2 in there. I feel like Edmonton should just take this, and I'm really curious to see how Skinner plays. It's going to be a pretty fun one to watch just from a highlights perspective, but I'm also very interested in the goalie situation in Edmonton.
Well, I already said that Jack Hughes might be the guy who could accelerate his hobby hype most in the playoffs, but as a tangent to that, or related to that, I guess, I think Stuart Skinner has an opportunity to be the biggest percentage gainer, because if he plays well and enough to get them into deep into the playoffs and maybe into a cup finals, there's no way that they do that without him playing well, I guess is the way I would put it. I was thinking about Austin Matthews too, and comparing his situation to McDavid and Draisaitl. And this might just be me, and that's why I wanted to ask you, Troy. But I kind of feel like that, right? Look at both disaster scenarios for both the Oilers and Maple Leafs. So if the Oilers get bounced in round one, to me, the narrative is not going to be McDavid and Draisaitl didn't come through. It's going to be the back end and the goalie let them down. Versus the Maple Leafs, it's going to be all about Matthews can't get it done. Am I crazy, or do you feel that that's kind of where the narratives are headed to?
Well, that's where the narratives are headed. Plus, with the Oilers, we always hear that, right? They have the offense. They just got to figure out the goalie situation, and maybe that happens this year. But if not, if they get scored on a lot, it's going to be the same story with the Oilers.
Okay, next series is our old team versus our new team. Dallas versus Minnesota. I got to go with the homer pick. As objective as I can be, though, when I think about this series, it does feel like a toss-up to me. I have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah, Wild have burned me so many times. I chose the Wild, but I really struggled. I went back and forth, but I ended up going with the Wild. It just seems like all the Wild forwards have to play. Kaprizov's going to have to score 90% of our goals or get points on 90% of our goals.
Right, don't envy Bill Guerin and Dean Evison with the Wild is managing our goalie situation. It's a lot easier looking at the Dallas Stars. You just ride Jake Ottinger all through the playoffs, where we have Gustafsson, who's been really good this year, and Marc-Andre Fleury. Where you want to give the temptation is because Fleury is so accomplished to give him, and this is what killed the Wild last year in the playoffs, is that they rode Fleury all the way, and he just wasn't great and didn't have the courage to play the other goalie. So that'll be really fascinating to see how it shakes out. Looking at the Wild, I think, and how it factors into the hobby, I think for Kaprizov to continue to be relevant, for him to produce in the playoffs is going to be important. And then there's also an opportunity in my mind, Troy, for Matt Boldy, who really, until Kaprizov got hurt, was, kind of really meh season this year, and then stepped it up. And if coming around to next year, if he's going to be still considered at the top of the 2022-23 Young Guns class, I think he has to play well in the playoffs. And then Dallas, it's just about how far can J-Rob go and how far does his rocket ship climb this offseason. And then last year it was Ottinger that kind of stole the show in the playoffs. And can he repeat that type of performance and lead his team deep into the playoffs? Okay, last series to look at is Colorado, the Avalanche versus Seattle Kraken. I'm going to go with the Colorado here. This was probably the easiest pick for me.
Yes, I went with the Avalanche too, and it's funny. As you said that, I was scrolling through the Athletic, and they have their predictions. And this one, everyone picked Colorado. It's the only one that's 100% to 0%. So,
from a hobby take perspective, looking like with Boldy, I think Beniers could really use a strong playoffs to help his hobby standing and values headed into next season, where I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot more over the next few months, but it's not just Bedard next year. There's Luke Hughes, and there's Adam Fantilli, and there's Logan Cooley. It's going to be a huge year for rookies and young guns. And how quick could this class be almost completely forgotten unless a couple of these guys like Boldy and Beniers really step up in the playoffs? So I'll be watching for that. I also think from that, looking at the Avs, Troy, that a deep run could result in maybe a few weeks of hobby spikes for the main cast of characters column, like McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen. They just had such a magical year last year. I don't. Does another Stanley Cup dramatically alter the hobby landscape for Nathan McKinnon at this point? I don't know. Maybe Cale Makar has more opportunity there. But do you agree that you just don't see a huge long-term impact for them?
You get back-to-back cups. That's a pretty big deal. And I think it solidifies McKinnon a little more because he's always been that guy that we thought was just on the superstar cusp. And now we think he's there. But you get a back-to-back one, I think there's some room for him there. There's a bump, and especially and Makar as well.
I do have a dark horse candidate here. Maybe one thing to keep an eye on that has flown, I think, to a large degree under the hobby radar this season, definitely under our radar, and it's been the play of Alexander Georgiev. There's a Georgiev. What do we call him?
I said Georgiev.
Okay, I'm going to go with you so I can blame you for wrong. He played 62 games this year, Troy. Went 40, 16, and 6. That's good, right? We think that's good?
Very good.
He had a 2.53 goals against and a .919 save percentage. That's, I think, pretty good as well. What's really interesting looking at his hockey cards is he's kind of like his old buddy Igor Shesterkin in that Georgiev is a update Young Guns from 2017 SP Authentic. Shesterkin was a couple years later, 2019, but if you recall, he's a SP Authentic Upper Deck Update Young Guns as well there too. Georgiev, 2017 Young Guns from SP Authentic, top 28. That's small. Has only sold twice, last being for $223 back in July. So this could be a guy where all of a sudden people are scrambling to get his cards if they're not already. And you think about that. This guy went from what are they, number 2 in the Western Conference? Defending Stanley Cup champion Avalanche. Very collectible, right? A lot of people collect the team. He goes 40, 16, and 6 with good numbers. And there's hardly any of his rookie cards. And I also searched on ComC a little bit. His Young Guns is the only rookie card I found. So there's really not much for this guy. And so, Troy, what if he stands on his head and has 3 shutouts or in the first 2 rounds or something like that, where there could be a kind of a mad dash for his cards?
Yeah, I had Georgiev. I remember him because in my list of goalies to watch for this year, he was actually in my top 3, I believe. So I've been kind of popping in and out on him, watching him. But yeah, if he can have a run, he's had a fantastic season. Like you said, we've kind of let him slip a little. I don't know if he's been on Who's Hot at all. I think
we haven't talked about him once.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
Did you go look? I thought maybe we did once, but we probably didn't. If you don't think we did, but yeah, there's definitely.
Do you think it would be a good idea for us to start to take our own advice? Because I'm guessing if we look up right now Georgiev Young Guns, you could have probably picked them up for
super cheap,
$5 raw or something like that. Because I know they're going for 25 to 40 right now, and so let's make a note to start listening to our own show and taking our own advice. All right, so that's our playoff fearless predictions. We agreed on most. I was kind of disappointed by that. Well, hoping to argue with you more.
Yeah, I remember when I wrote them down, then I went and looked at yours, and I was like, oh. I think there was maybe one series we didn't agree.
Vegas and Jets, right?
Yep.
Team Jets. Hobby news. Want to start with injury roundup. Matthew Barzal is expected to be back for the Islanders' first game versus the Hurricanes after missing 23 games with a lower body injury. The question, of course, is going to be what percentage healthy is he at this point? I've heard that his injury was not insignificant, but there's a lot of players that are pretty banged up, I suppose, this time of year. It should be a boost, though, for the Islanders, and definitely will help in their series against the Hurricanes. I also, because we've been following this for the last week or so, I haven't seen anything new on the Makar situation, which seems crazy. It's like, how would there not be a single article in the last 2 days about his availability for game 1? I'm assuming he'll give it a go. I know he was in skating, so that's usually a good sign, but we'll have to see. Okay, Troy, so most people think that when the regular season ends, the biggest story, of course, is it shakes out from a finality perspective, who's going to be in the playoffs and what the matchups are going to be. But no. The regular season ends, and we finally know who has the leg up in the chase for Connor Bedard, as the NHL draft lottery odds are now finalized. And we know, and it's been narrowed down, Troy, to there's 11 possible teams that Connor Bedard could go to. Never has the race to the bottom been more exciting. And never have fans been more irate at their team for winning over the past couple of weeks. Blackhawks.
Yeah, there you go.
Not only do we know the list of 11 teams that Bedard could be headed to, we also have the odds of each team that will get that coveted number one pick. So we're going to go through the list and give our take on the impact each team would have on the hobby and Bedard's ability, I guess, to bring new fans into the game. So here's our disclaimer. We get it. If you're a fan of any of these teams, if they're your team, you're going to want him so bad. I would too, if the Wild had a ping pong ball's chance of getting Connor Bedard. But Troy and I, you guys got to realize we're Bedard truthers. Got to tell the truth. Keep it real. In case you're wondering too why only 11 teams have a chance to get Bedard when more have missed the playoffs, there is a rule in the NHL draft lottery where a team can only move up a maximum of 10 spots. So if you're the 13th team, you can only move up to the number 3 spot. So who is the team, Troy, that was bad this year? Didn't make the playoffs, but just not quite bad enough to land Connor Bedard? The dreaded 12th worst record in the NHL. It's your Ottawa Senators, Troy.
Oh, interesting.
That would have been a spicy team. I mean, I don't know about the Ottawa market, and I don't want him in Canada, of course, but talk about young talent. You throw Connor Bedard in there,
yeah.
Holy smokes. That would be interesting. Okay, so let's go down the list. We're going to start with the greatest chance to get Connor Bedard, kind of coming out of nowhere in the last few weeks of the season.
They did. Like, I don't remember talking about it. And all of a sudden I'm looking at these things, and here come, I won't ruin it, but don't step on it. Okay. And here come the Ducks. They're like, hey, we got to get this guy.
The Ducks have a 25.5% chance of getting the number one pick and picking Connor Bedard. So if you listen to a while, you know what I'm going to say. My biggest issue with the Ducks is the time zone thing. I desperately want him in the U.S., so check that box. But it's so hard on the West Coast, and I'm going to try really hard not to be a broken record through this whole segment. But for the longest time before the NHL realigned the divisions, the Wild played on the West Coast constantly. And even being in Central Time, it sucked. It was miserable trying to watch their games. So I can't imagine a 9-year-old that wants to see Connor Bedard play who lives in Philadelphia will ever get to see him play unless they're on a road trip somewhere or regularly if he's on the West Coast. So that's my beef there. I'm also not a great hockey mind too, Troy, but you hear a lot of people talk about, the matchup of Bedard and Zegras. Is there something to the fact, though, that they're both like itty bitty, teeny tiny of them playing together? Or like, would they need someone pretty big out there with them to make that work? Or in the modern NHL, are you not that worried about that?
I am worried about it just from the amount of injuries we are seeing to these smaller players. The dreaded shoulder injury that seems to pop up all the time.
The young pairing, though, I mean, you think of like a core of Bedard, Zegras, McTavish, and then throw in maybe Jamie Drysdale. I think missed most of the season, if not all of it this year. That is a pretty exciting young core.
Yeah, the thing with, if Bedard goes to the Ducks, we're going to say they're in a rebuilding mode, right? They have to be. They were awful. I think Gibson got the most of their starts as a goalie, and he's not been good for a while, multiple seasons. I think I was looking at some of the off-seasons moves they made and what they signed Klingberg and then ended up trading him at the trade deadline. So it just seems like they're going to be in a rebuild mode for a couple of years. But hey, what better way to rebuild than get Bedard?
Do you think that there's any GM in the NHL that would try to overthink the bit and be like, okay, we're a bad team. We have so many holes to fill here on the Ducks. We have a young core of players we like. I'm going to trade this pick for the haul of a lifetime. It seems insane to me. I think you have a transcendent player. There's not enough players or draft picks to make up for that.
I would keep Bedard. You could probably, there's a GM out there thinking like that, but I think you got to just take Bedard and run with it. Don't do what the Vikings did with Herschel Walker and give the Dallas Cowboys a bunch of Super Bowls because you traded everything to them. And we were talking about this is where I don't know my own show. There was someone we talked about, and the GMs, I can't remember who it was, and the GMs were offering like everything for him.
Lindros.
Yeah, Lindros, that's it, because he was so hyped. And of course, no one pulled the trigger on it. But yeah, that'd be interesting if someone tried to do that. But no, keep Bedard. If you get number one, draft Bedard.
I don't think your fan base would ever forgive you.
No, you'd be that. I mean, you're riding. I mean, I guess the way you look at it, you're riding everything on it. But it'd be interesting. But keep Bedard.
Okay, the team with the second highest odds of getting Connor Bedard are the Columbus Blue Jackets Troy at 13.5%. This one checks a lot of the boxes for me, of course. It's the U.S., Central Time Zone, blah, blah, blah. It is, though, Troy, a tiny market, and I don't know a lot. I'm not a great Ohio hockey mind, but I just wonder, and I could be wrong, so I'm just asking the question, does anyone there care about this team? And would, by anyone, I mean, do they have like a huge fan base that fills the arena and there's a season ticket waiting list, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, I do not know. I do know we do have a lot of passionate Blue Jacket fans that message us a lot, but I do not know what the Blue Jackets like ticket sales are, fan base in Ohio is, but I'm going to guess they're pretty good.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. For the hobby and for the NHL, and there's always going to be trade-offs with every one of these locations. Would it be better for Bedard to be in the Orange County area, Southern California, tons and tons of people, big sports population, huge market, but on the West Coast, or would you rather have him in Columbus, more centrally located? If you had to pick your poison, which would it be?
I would probably want him in Anaheim for the team and the excitement that they could get around him.
Okay. The team with the third highest odds, Troy, is the Chicago Blackhawks at 11.5%. Did they blow it? It seemed like they were going to be number one with the bullet. You trade Patrick Kane and you end up with the third highest odds. And you think about it, right? Anaheim is 25.5%. Chicago's 11.5%. They just reduced their odds by more than a half of landing Bedard. It is, though, probably the perfect destination. Huge market in the USA, close to Canada, right in the middle of the country. Original 6 team. They just ditched Taves, so the captaincy is available. It would probably be the best thing for hockey and the best thing for the hobby to have Bedard in Chi-Town. I'm not a Blackhawks fan, so I say that begrudgingly a little bit. But picture, though, Troy, a Bedard Cup RPA with 6 or 7 colors in the patch.
Well, that would be pretty sweet.
The fourth team with the fourth highest odds is the San Jose Sharks, or San Jose, as some people like to call them. To me, this is, of all 11 teams, this is probably the second least ideal spot for him, in my opinion. Sorry, Sharks fans. It's a small market, West Coast. They do have like an amazing fan base, though, so I'll give them credit for that. I know, like in fan rankings, they always do really well, but I just don't know if there'd be a ton of national relevancy with him there. Team with the fifth best odds of getting Bedard are the Montreal Canadiens at 8.5%. If he had to land in Canada, this would probably be the best spot for the hobby values. Of course, it's a very young and exciting team. It's one of the best markets in the NHL. It's one of the best hobby markets there is. It checks every box except for the whole USA thing. And again, just to be clear, why we want him in the USA so much is because this is where the opportunity is for the game to grow. And hockey can't get bigger in Montreal, I don't think, unless somebody can prove otherwise. And do you think he speaks French? Is that going to be a problem?
Well, that one politician might yell at him like he did Suzuki.
Yeah, well, maybe Suzuki could give him a little tutoring there if he does end up there. So, do you have any thoughts on Bedard to Montreal?
I do think if he goes to Montreal, the Montreal people go nuts, and I think his already high Young Guns prices might go even higher.
So, what's the percentage difference in his Young Gun price if he plays for San Jose versus the Montreal Canadiens? Is it a 20% bump?
I was thinking like
100%?
I was thinking 10 to 15%.
Okay. It's going to be high anyways. Okay, the team with the sixth highest chance of getting Connor Bedard are the Arizona Coyotes. Oh, God, no. Bedard as a desert dog, Troy? Are you buying that? Or
I've been thinking a lot about with him going to Arizona because our boy is going to be in Arizona, Logan Cooley.
You're trying to talk yourself into this.
I'm trying to talk myself into the Coyotes because they got they got some good players. Yeah. They're exciting, but again, like I said, I don't know, it was last episode, 2 episodes again. You got the small mullet arena. You're in the desert. You're in the middle of the desert. Players must love playing there. Must be nice and warm all year for the home games. I keep trying to talk myself into Arizona, but do I think it's good for the hobby if he ends up there? Probably not, but I do think there's some excitement that can happen if he does land there with what that team has.
The seating capacity of Mullet Arena is 4,600. How much are tickets going to be those games if he goes there?
They're going to be high.
The
tickets are already high because they got to make up the money with the small seats or small seating capacity.
What are the odds that Connor Bedard sells out every arena he plays in next year? Do you think that like he's that big of a star where he can go to a market that maybe wouldn't traditionally sell out? Kind of the LeBron James factor?
Yes. Granted, now we're going to caveat this. He makes the NHL roster day one or whatever, but I think he will. We're assuming he does. Yeah, I think he has the potential to definitely drive some attendance at away games.
Well, Troy, he's going to have to because it's the same situation. Remember, he's exceptional status and he's 18 years old. So he either plays in the NHL, sits in the Shane Wright
that's right. He's got
or
that
goes
thing.
back to the CHL. He can't play in the AHL. The team with the seventh best odds to get Bedard, Troy, are the Philadelphia Flyers at 6.5%. This is one I've been thinking about. I think I could actually get behind this. Gritty might lose his mind in the process. My only concern about the Flyers, and sorry, Flyers fans, it's not your fault, but is do you have enough confidence that they would actually be able to put a good team around him and not waste his talents? Seems to be an issue for them over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, it would be good for him to be.
Is that too harsh?
I don't know if it's too harsh. They've had some rough spats going, but again, Philadelphia would be a great market. Crazy fan base. A lot of hype would follow him there. Huge market. I've actually been looking up the markets because I was thinking about when you said Columbus, how small they were, and I was trying to think what they were. They are pretty small. They're not the smallest, but they're pretty small.
Team with the eighth best odds of getting Bedard are the Washington Capitals at 6%. So, Troy, can you imagine Ovi sitting in the Ovi spot, right, the left face-off circle, just smiling, just standing? He doesn't move much, right? Doesn't have to, and waiting for CB to saucer him the puck over for a one-timer. Bedard going to the Capitals kind of would remind me of the Lemieux-Crosby situation where you have an old legend ushering in the potential new legend. I think it would actually be pretty good for the game too, and for the hobby, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is my conspiracy pick. If Bettman wants to rig it, this is how he would rig it. He'd send Bedard to the Capitals. He's going to help Ovi break the record for goals because Bedard's just going to feed him passes all day. East Coast, crazy market. It would be interesting. I have no problem if he goes to Washington.
Mm-hmm. We have 3 teams left. Number 9 is the Red Wings at 5%. I just don't know how Bedard would fit into Mo Seider's team, Troy.
I think he might take it over.
You do? Oh, well, could it get uncomfortable? I don't know. In all honesty, it would be probably a good spot for the league and the hobby. Good market just across the river from Canada, of course. An original 6 team. Strong legacy, central time zone, blah, blah, blah. This seems boring and obvious to you. I don't know why. I just don't get as excited as other spots.
Yeah, this would be great from a original 6 perspective and everything. But I just said no. Bedard, they've had their run. Detroit was great for a long time in the 90s. They don't need Bedard yet.
Mm-hmm. The 10th best odds are the St. Louis Blues at 3.5%. To me, I think this is my least favorite landing spot. And I have to be honest here too. We're Wild fans. We naturally have a rivalry with the Blues. And so I don't know if that is clouding my judgment a little bit here too. But it is in the central time zone and they do have a strong legacy. I just don't know if the country and fan bases all over get all that excited about him being on the Blues. What do you think?
I think the Blues would probably be one of the worst spots for him to end up. Kind of like you said. Now we say the rivalry thing, but we all are also advocating he ends up in Chicago, which plays the Wild a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't like him in the Blues organization. Just, I don't know if that drives a lot. I mean, it's still going to drive hype, but I put meh in my notes. So that's what I thought of it.
Would you rather have him on the Blues or the Desert Dogs?
Desert Dogs, baby.
Okay. Last team that has a chance to get Connor Bedard, Troy, at 3% is the hometown team. Could the hometown boy be going to the hometown team? So you're saying there's a chance at 3%. The Vancouver Canucks would certainly juice up that franchise and fan base. Very strong fan base, of course, in Vancouver. I just don't know how much it would help grow the game. Which is, so now not only are you on the way west coast, you're also in Canada. So I'm sure they want this desperately, but I just, again, from the perspective of the opportunity to grow the game of hockey in the United States, this would be not great.
And I don't know what Tocchet's history of is developing players. Would he be a good fit for developing Bedard? I don't know. I could see him doesn't pull any punches, and who knows if that's what Bedard needs, or But I think that'd be an interesting point if he goes to Vancouver. But Vancouver could sure use it because that season this year was just awful.
Those are your 11 teams that could land Connor Bedard. We'll keep you posted on. We are your Bedard watch leaders here at the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. Last little bit in hobby news, pretty quick, Troy. Saw this on Instagram today from the NHL. Have you ever heard of them?
I have heard of them.
Good. You're on a hockey card podcast, so that gives me confidence. Well, Troy, a whopping average of 6.4 total goals per game were scored this season. It is the most in the NHL since 1993-94, a mere 29 years ago. As a result, we finished the season with 5 50-plus goal scorers, 11 players with more than 100 points. Last season, we had 4 50-point goal scorers and 8 players with 100-plus points. And if you go back like 4 or 5 years ago, it's really common to have maybe 3 to 5 guys with 100 points or more in a season. So I think most would agree that, in general, more goals is a good thing for the hockey hobby, and goals were higher this year than in the past 29 years.
Better be selective on your goalies who you want to follow and collect.
Yeah.
Seems like the tide is turning. We've talked about it before on how there's articles now, like what is going on with NHL goalies? What's going on?
Isn't a lot of it the rule changes and just
there's a bunch of physically stuff. Rule changes, and like we've said, we kind of mentioned it, but there's rule changes. There's fourth lines are now all offensive minded. You're getting rid of the bruisers or the checking line. There's still some guys in the league, but a lot of these guys, even though they're the bruisers, they can still score. So it's just a whole change of the game to an offensive mindset.
Which I'm 100% on board with.
Yeah.
How many years did we have tickets to the Wild during the Jacques Lemaire
neutral zone
dump
trap,
and chase? Neutral zone trap years where it wasn't a fun brand of hockey to watch. I got to be honest. It was not exciting at all.
When the Devils won those cups running the neutral zone trap, the amount of everyone hates this. It's so boring to watch, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to make a quick mention for PWCC. Of course, they are a Gongshow partner and sponsor, and we want to thank them for helping us make our show possible. Reminder, Troy, that the April premiere auction ends this Thursday, and there's 9 total hockey cards in this month's premiere. You should go to pwccmarketplace.com to check it out. There's a couple of McDavid Cup RPAs, true RPAs, and exquisite out of 97s. There's, Troy, just your average 1985 OPG Mario Lemieux PSA 10. Oh, hum there.
That's nice.
A 2020 The Cup McDavid NHL Shield Auto 1/1. A big card, just to name a few. Also, this week's PWCC weekly auction is already live. There's a total of 407 hockey cards. That's a big number. And we'll preview a couple of our favorites, of course, on Thursday's show. Okay, the Masterclass is back. Part 2 with Mitch Gropman. We've been trying to bring you a new episode of this series each month. And so for April, we're picking up on our series. And we'll call this our series within a series, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Part 2 of the Cup. Because this set is so important to the hockey hobby, and in conjunction with our collaborator, Mitch Gropman, we decided to break it up into 3 parts. It would have been either a 12-hour episode or not a lot of information had we tried to cram it into one regular edition of our masterclass. So part 1, which was in episode 59, way back, Troy, on February 23rd, Mitch Gropman started The Cup Masterclass with the first 5 releases of the Cup, which debuted in 2005-06 and went through 2009-10 release. Mitch, of course, is a noted Cup expert, so he's the guy that Cup guys go to when they have questions. He's the guy's guy. Nobody, I don't think, has any more information on the Cup than Mitch, and he's a perfect person he's very passionate about it, and so we're really grateful to have him on board. And with that, here's part 2 of the Cup Masterclass. We hope you guys enjoy. Very excited to have Mitch Gropman back for part 2 of our Masterclass on the Cup. The Cup is so important that we couldn't just do it in one Masterclass. We decided to break it into 3 separate chunks. If you missed episode 59, you might want to go back and start there, where we covered the first run of the Cup from 2005-06 through 2009-10. But we are very pleased, honored, and excited to have Mitch Gropman back on the show to continue our journey through the Cup. Welcome back, Mitch.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. Really looking forward to this.
Okay, so we're gonna dive in. We're gonna get in the weeds, which is awesome. regarding the cup. But before we do real quick, I just want to take a little bit of the big picture again and kind of cover why we decided to cover the cup in 3 episodes and why the cup in of itself deserves a masterclass. Is that a good place for us to start, Mitch? And maybe just again look at the big picture and significance of the cup as a hockey release.
I'll kind of restate, what I said in the last episode. But for those that don't know, the cup is, and for the foreseeable future until the NHL decides otherwise, it will always be the most high-end hockey product that's ever made. And I think because of that, and at this point it's had enough years, it's kind of developed this almost mythical quality to it. When there's a lot of lore as it comes to the cup. It being the most high-end product, if you compare it to the other sports, what the most high-end product is seems to change all the time. But in hockey, we kind of have this special niche where we have this peak that remains there the whole time. So to me and to many, many other hockey collectors, the cup is very special. People deserve to know about it.
So in part 1, we kind of covered really the creation of the cup, the very beginning, the first few sets. As we begin now to dive into, I don't know, what do we call this, like the Middle Ages of the cup, or what's the good, or I guess how would you describe this kind of middle chunk of years? Is there an overarching theme that kind of makes this group sort of fit into one theme?
I would say probably the biggest way to categorize this group of years is that it starts 10-11. That's the first year of the cup that Carving Chung did not touch. And then it goes to 15-16. And that's the season that Billy Celio joined Upper Deck. So I think that we have this kind of middle ground where there's a lot of stuff happening. And, I'll get to this later, but I would say 14-15, the cup is probably the biggest shift the product has ever had.
So in your mind, when it comes to these releases, what I take away from what you just said is really how big of an impact the product manager has on leaving their imprint on these sets, and that you can almost kind of divide. And it also is convenient that the buckets are about the same size as far as the number of releases in the parts that we've done, but it does kind of coincide nicely with who's at the helm of these releases for each of these periods.
And while we're going through it, I do want to give a couple disclaimers for my own biases. That way, when you're consuming this content, you can kind of see it through that lens. It's no secret that my favorite cup cards are the ones created by Carving Chung. To me, that's the creme de la creme, so to speak. I still have many other cup cards from after that time. I do feel like for your listeners, it's worth taking it with that particular grain of salt, that those are my favorite cards. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then the other one that I wanted to say, and I wish I said this on the first episode, is that me personally, I do not collect rookie cards. I might not put as big of an emphasis on the rookie cards that other people might. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I think before we sort of hand the wheel to you to start really diving into 2010, 2011, the Cup, the one last thing that I want to do is let everyone know who Mitch is. And we did a complete kind of bio in part one, and so I would refer people back to then. But when it seems like the topic of the Cup or anyone has a question or somebody's looking for a specific card, that Mitch Gropman is one of the first names that comes up. And you're very, very well respected within the hobby and really the perfect choice, I think, to lead this really important discussion. And what I think too is kind of cool about the Cup is that it feels like the history of hockey, but it's also what's happening right now too. And so it just kind of, I think, shows the significance of this release. So if anyone wants a complete bio of Mitch, he's our Cup guy, he's our Cup expert. And with that, Mitch, we're going to hand the wheel over to you and let you run, and just can't wait to soak in all the information you have for us today.
I guess I'll just pick up right where I left off at 10-11. We'll do what we did last time. I'll have you guys guess the presale price. So just for context, 10-11 The Cup came out August 31st, 2011. So I'll let you guys each take a stab at the presale price. I'm
going to say $475.
I'm going to go with $325.
It is the middle of your two guesses. It was $400 even. So I guess Troy wins Price is Right rules.
Always wins.
I think if you're looking at a macro view of the cup sets, I think what people would notice most obviously about this release of 10-11 is that it was the year that the cup introduced booklets, which has remained every year since then. So prior to 10-11, there were no booklets in the cup. So you have the autographed rookie gear booklets, which on one side you have a full body shot of the player with an autograph, and on the other side you have various pieces of memorabilia. And you also have, so I talked in the previous episodes about the 08-09 draft boards. So in 10-11, they introduced a new version of the draft boards, which is a booklet, and then on one side is a patch. So it has a draft board on one side and then patches on the other side. And then one of the biggest additions, this is not a booklet, is the scripted sticks. Those have remained a very popular subset to this day. And I would say probably in terms of popularity, the scripted sticks would be the biggest key change in addition to the cup from this year. Getting to the rookie class, so we're back to 6 out of 99, and it remained that way ever since, besides 1 year that we'll get to. So the out of 99 rookies in 2011 were Bobrovsky, PK Subban, Jordan Eberle, Tyler Seguin, and Taylor Hall. And then there's also a Robin Lehner, who does not have a patch auto. It's just an autograph. That's out of 199. And then the notable out of 249 RPAs were Jacob Markstrom, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Nazem Kadri. So no one crazy in this set. At the time, Taylor Hall was by far the biggest chase to get. PK Subban was also a pretty big chase at the time. Eberle and Seguin, the kind of next tier, and Bobrovsky. But that was, in my opinion, a huge upgrade from 09-10 design-wise. I would say 10-11 overall, one of my favorite designs on the cup cards. People really like the limited logos from that year. The shape of the patch is a shield shape, more of like a gem. You can look it up if you're listening. I find it to be very interesting. One of my favorite limited logos designs.
Yeah, it's almost like a crest. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
And it does have that sort of crest feel too. One quick question I have going backwards a little bit. So you had mentioned a minute ago that scripted sticks is introduced. Is that the name of the card? So is that just an autograph on a piece of the shaving of a stick, essentially?
Yeah. So ever since the first cup set, they had done the scripted swatches, which is an autograph on the piece of patch. So the stick is the same idea. The shape is usually the same, except instead of a patch, it's a stick. People seem to really prefer the scripted sticks that are on the outside of the stick as opposed to the pulp of a stick, like if it's just like plain wood. People don't like that as much. However, personally, I think the autographs usually come out better on the pulp. So that's just kind of a hot take for me. But typically in terms of, what people are going to pay more for, it's going to be if it says Bauer or something on the stick, people are going to like that. But those are still pretty popular. I think more popular than the scripted swatches, which I believe, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, I believe they're getting rid of that in the next cup set.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've always thought that autographs on material never really, because the ink soaks into the jersey or the patch a little bit. And so I'm looking at an example of the scripted sticks, and it shows an Ovechkin from 2010-11. And the auto does look really nice, and it's got that window kind of view over it too.
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest benefits is that unlike cloth, ink is not going to bleed as much onto wood. Some with the graphite sticks, there's been some that you've noticed where the ink does bleed a little bit more, but on wood it looks pretty good usually. I mean, there's always exceptions. Another, in my opinion, very key change from this year is that the honorable numbers and the gold RPA, so those are the ones that are numbered to the player's jersey number, these at this time became hand numbered. So previously, there had never been a hand-numbered cup card. Personally, I don't like the hand numbering.
Really? I love hand numbering. So, I can't wait to hear why.
So there's been a couple of cases where people have applied acetone to the numbering to make it jersey numbered. There was recently a case where the Gretzky auto jersey from 99 be a player 99 out of 99 sold, and there was a lot of speculation that card was, they changed the numbering on it. Now, I don't think this is like a big issue because it'll be pretty obvious if you find the real one and you compare it. But I just don't think they look as nice as a stamp, especially for 101. I really like that 101's like cursive font, like even compared to the 101 stamps where it just looks like the regular numbering font. And maybe, that's not like a huge deal, but that's definitely my preference. Another big change is that the 101 patch autos, so these are parallels of the base cards that are autographed and have a patch in them. So previously, up until this point, they've just been patches, but then in 1011, they changed the 101 auto mem cards to tags, and they remain that way for some time until 14-15. But the other thing is, I think this is cool, and I wish this is something that Upper Deck did more of, is they advertised the volume of the patch space as being 1 inch by 1 inch. So you have a 1 full square inch of patch. It reminds me of the most recent cup release, 2021, with the limited logos. They completely changed the shape into be a more oblong rectangle compared to typically they're somewhat of a square shape. And I think a lot of people think that the limited logos were smaller this year, but they're definitely way wider. I haven't actually measured it, but I'm pretty confident that they're not very much smaller, if at all. I think if Upper Deck advertised how big the patch swatches are, I don't think that's something they've ever tapped into before outside of the 1011 the cup sell sheet, where they did advertise that the patches were 1 inch by 1 inch for the base parallels. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing is that they brought decoys back. I know I mentioned these a little bit, but these were not every single case. And they were a little different because you almost got like what were hot boxes. So I remember there was a box break that Chris Justice from Cards Infinity did of 1011 the cup, where he got a decoy in his pack. And the base card was a gold out of 25. His rookie was actually a PK Subban gold, which would normally have been a case hit. And then he had a 3-color Sidney Crosby signature patch and a Gordie Howe Bobby Orr dual cup enshrinements all in one pack.
I would take that.
I'm probably done ripping after that. I'm like, that's it. I've probably hit the best pack I ever could hit. I'm out.
I'm sure that is still on YouTube. He didn't react too much shit because he's not a hockey guy, but that's probably the craziest cup pack I've ever seen, just in terms of number of good cards in one pack. And then the other thing I want to mention from this year is that Upper Deck introduced what is still kind of a controversial idea in the hobby, where they had players sign a card twice. The biggest example is going to be Sidney Crosby. For those that don't know, with the exception of one 0506 SPX, I think it's winning materials with Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, for reasons that are not totally clear, a lot of people speculate it's because of his dad, he will not sign duels with anyone. He recently has, and I'll get to who he has signed duels with at this point, but the way that Upper Deck was able to insert Sidney Crosby into the dual auto sets is by just having him sign the card twice. So in 1011 the cup, there's a dual cup enshrinements, there's a dual program of excellence, there's a dual honorable numbers, and there's a dual auto shield. So that's a dual shield with 2 game-used Sidney Crosby shield patches and 2 Sidney Crosby autographs, 1 on each side. So a lot of people really like these cards. They're obviously very unique. And then they Upper Deck put a few more. I know there's a Steven Stamkos dual sign of the times that you signed twice, cards like that. But definitely the Sidney Crosby duels in the cup are the most notable examples of double signed cards. Personally, they don't do much for me, but a lot of people really like them. I don't know if you've ever seen those cards before.
I'm looking it up right now to see if I can find one. The whole concept it does seem a little foreign to me, and I'm trying to figure out how I would react to pulling a card that has the auto twice of the same player. It would almost seem like a mistake to me initially.
I'm looking at the Crosby one right now, and I don't know how to react. It's not. My first reaction was when I looked at it to see why can't I tell who the other player is, but now that I know it's both Crosby, because he kind of looks like Malkin on the right side a little bit, but you can tell it's Crosby's 2 autos. Yeah, I don't know how to. I'm staring at it. I don't know what to say. It is interesting. It's definitely interesting.
It doesn't look like they sell real. I mean, I can't imagine there's a lot of these. So where in the context would you put the value of these? I'm just curious. If something like one of the top ones from this set went to auction today, would it be less value than a limited logos or something like that? Or would it have more value because it has the dual autos?
So it really would depend on which card we're talking about. So I can tell you that coincidentally, the dual shield was listed for a 99-cent auction last week, and it was pulled down today for reasons I don't know about, but it had gotten up to like 13,000 US for the dual Crosby shield. In terms of like the dual program of excellence, that card's out of 5. So that's going to be, it could be more honorable numbers is out of 87. Obviously that is a patch and the program of excellence doesn't. But in terms of what they sell for, I haven't seen any public sales of the Crosby duels in a while. I think it does kind of fit a niche market, but any of them are going to sell pretty well. More than, I'll say it this way, they'll sell more than any single auto will sell for.
Yeah.
So I'm going to date this podcast, I guess, but I did a lookup on the Crosby duel, and I could find one that sold on October, it looks like 25th of 2022. For $1,259, and that's out of the 87. It's dual. Looks like the dual auto. Just to give you an idea.
That's a little bit more than the regular honorable numbers of Sidney Crosby sell for. Typically, a single one out of 87. That's probably an $800 to $1,000 card at this point.
Okay, well, interesting. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, and then I also want to. I always like to mention the legends from the Cup that had never had an autograph up until this point that make their debut. So for 10-11, I found Igor Larionov, Joe Sakic, Eric Lindros, and Ron Francis. So that's the first year that you can find autographs of those players in the Cup. So to me, that is pretty worthwhile. Eric Lindros in particular, I mean, he signed the most recently, but he doesn't have a lot of Cup cards, and his fans are very passionate. His cards sell for a lot more than what I think they should sell for. But he's just one of those players where, he doesn't have a ton of hardware or counting stats, but, he was a very, very hyped player. There's a lot of legends surrounding Eric Lindros, so his cards are very, they do very well. Eric Lindros is an interesting guy to think about when you're thinking of what's the formula that makes a player's cards more or less expensive. Because you can say, oh, well, it's cups or it's MVPs or it's, 500 goals. But then you have guys like Lindros and Forsberg and Bure who don't have any of those things. And they're worth way more than guys that do. So that's just, to me, an interesting aside for people to think about when they're valuing players.
It's just that magical, mystical hype factor that is impossible to quantify. And it just seems like players have it or they don't.
That's all I wanted to mention for 10-11, the Cup. Did you guys have any other questions before we go to 11-12?
No, it seems like it was a pretty significant year as far as introductions and changes, and kind of an exciting place to start.
11-12, the Cup came out in September 11th, 2012. You guys want to take a guess on this price for presale?
You get to go first this time, Trey.
All right, I am going to go $350.
I'm going to stick with $400.
So this one was more expensive for reasons I'm not quite sure about. This one was $485 when it came out.
Wow, because weren't we laughing about we were trying to think of the 2011 rookie class, weren't we, the other day? Or we don't talk about a lot of the 2011 rookies on our show a lot, and we were. So this is kind of interesting.
Yeah, Nugent Hopkins. I think we were discussing him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The fact that you rarely ever talk about the like you said, rookies from the 2011 class.
This is a class where at the time there were a lot of guys that were very hype. Obviously, Nugent Hopkins was the biggest name to get. This might be a fun way to do it. You guys want to take a guess at who any of the other out of 99 rookies were in 2011?
Oh, Troy loves these.
I'm so bad at remembering years and stuff, but I'm cheating because I'm looking up a list of rookies because I'm so bad at remembering.
Okay, you take a guess then because I don't have the rookies in front of me, so I'm lost.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Man, oh boy, these names are. I'm looking at the all rookie team and it's like, holy cow! How about was Landeskog?
Yeah, Landeskog was at
Okay.
99.
How about Adam Henrique?
Nope.
Nope. Jake Gardner?
Nope.
Yeah. I don't know who
So
else.
I'll tell you the other 4 out of 99s. So there are 2 that are still good, Mark Scheifele and Sean Couturier. Sean Couturier was pretty hyped at the time, more so than Scheifele. And then you have 2 players that I would say categorically are busts. Louis LeBlanc from the Montreal Canadiens, and then Cody Hodgson from the Vancouver Canucks, both out of 99. Both did not last very long in the NHL. I think my feeling is that Upper Deck usually will give preference to giving out of 99 rookies to Canadians that could be good. They're more risky. I think we saw that with the most recent release with Romanov. And then, of course, out of 249, you have Mika Zibanejad and Cam Atkinson. So those are probably, other than Landeskog and Nuge, probably the 2 best ones to get. And then, of course, the best rookie from that class is Pat Maroon.
Okay.
I was waiting for it. I was like, oh, Pat Maroon. And he just got made, right? He's the guy that got made fun of, right? For his weight. Someone made fun of him.
Yeah, that controversial Bruins
Oh,
color guy
Jack
or
Edwards.
analyst.
Jack Edwards.
Yeah. So Pat Maroon's Cup rookie is actually just an auto. There's no patch. There were a lot of really great legends that were introduced in that year that kind of make up for it. Brett Hull, Paul Coffey, Mike Gartner, Curtis Joseph, Trevor Linden. Also from the Crosby tribute subset that I talked about in the last episode, we have Mike Tyson and Jack Nicklaus. To me, those are very cool cards. In terms of new sets, they added a new rookie parallel this year, which is the black flag tag out of 5. These are all also autographed, and each one features the flag part of the tag of a jersey. None of these are game used, so it's easy for them to get 5 Canada flag jersey patches. And then there's the dual scripted sticks. So that's a huge set. There's one guy on Instagram who like really goes crazy about this subset. That's his username is just dual scripted sticks, and he has almost all of them. And then there was another subset that people might not know about that I think is definitely worth mentioning because it's maybe the biggest oddball cup card ever. Is they're called Rookie Evolution, and they're video cards. So have you guys heard of this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I gotta jump in.
Seen
I gotta jump in. I love these cards. I've seen them, and I remember we were talking right when we started our show. I think I remember saying, "Wouldn't it be awesome if you had these like you open it, you get this card, and it's a video. You open it, it's like a video that plays." And someone heard it and messaged us and said, "Hey, check this link out." So I think they're kind of cool, even though it's crazy that 12 years ago this came out. That's kind of a little forward thinking, I would think. But yeah, I have seen these. I don't know what the collectability of them is, but I think they're cool.
So there's a few things that cause them to be not very collectible. Chief among them is that the batteries died very quickly.
I was going to say they might just died working after a year.
And there wasn't a way to replace the battery without opening the card.
Yeah.
I believe somehow there are still some that work. I've seen, but also Upper Deck in the mock-up for this product accidentally put out of 99 in the mock-up, but there's actually way fewer than that. I know that they did an interview with I forgot his title, Upper Deck's, I guess he's like a client relations manager. I'm probably getting this wrong, but Chris Carlin put out an interview where he talked about these cards, and he emphasized that they're 1 in 30 cases. So they're one of the rarest cards to get. He didn't say what the actual print run is, but from talking to him, I'm guessing there's probably like 10 to 15 of each card. But yeah, for those that haven't seen the card, I'm sure there's videos of it, but you open it up and it will show a highlight of a player. I thought they were very cool at the time, but unfortunately, because the batteries die, I wonder what the hell they would grade that. Like, does it get a higher grade if the battery works?
Yeah. Do you own any of these, or have you owned any of them?
I owned one a long time ago, and I think I sold it for $75, and it wasn't like a big name player. I don't remember who it was, honestly, but I did at one time own one. So in terms of unique things with this year of the Cup, I want to highlight a few really important cards that came out this year. probably by far the most valuable of them is that this is the only year where the limited logos subset has Oilers patches for Wayne Gretzky. So these cards do crazy money, like way more than you can find sales of the 06-07 Gretzky limited logos, which has a Kings patch. That one's out of 50. This one's out of 10. Those do like 10,000 maybe. This will do many multiples of that if one ever sold publicly. Our friend Les Edwards at this time owns, I believe, 6 of them. He might have 7. So that's that, and the Gordie Howe are the 2 that he wants all of them. So
we need to do an episode of like hockey card hoarders for Les Edwards and have him on, for all the good cards in the hobby.
Yeah, so that's a huge card. I would say, a lot of people think that's maybe the most important limited logos ever made. Personally, I still give preference to the Gordie Howe, but that's a pretty big card. Another card I want to highlight that's in this set is the only Bob Probert shield. It's a duel with Doug Wilson. He has very few cards, and there's many very passionate, dedicated Bob Probert collectors, so I did want to throw that out there. There's also a dual auto shield that is 2 Eric Lindros shields that are signed. So that's a pretty big card too. And then this is the first year that Crosby signed a card with another player besides the one-off Gretzky Crosby from 05-06 that actually wasn't supposed to be made. So he has a dual scripted swatches and a dual signature patch with Mario Lemieux. These are actually 10-11 cards, but they were updates into the 11-12 release. As of today, there's only 3 players besides Gretzky that wasn't supposed to be made that have signed with Sidney Crosby. Mario Lemieux, Evgeny Malkin, and Connor McDavid.
Wow.
Unfortunately, in my opinion, a Crosby-Ovechkin duel would be
crazy.
It is a crime that the hobby does not have that card. I wish that card existed, but those are the only 3 players he's ever signed with to this day.
I figure he would sign with McKinnon at some point since he's like best buds with him.
Yeah, I wish we knew more. If he would speak publicly about his process, if it's his brand or pressure from his family, I don't know what it is exactly. A lot of people speculate, but I have not seen any direct information about that.
And this would be up to Crosby, of course, but I can imagine that the guys at Upper Deck must be thinking a year or 2 down the road with the Cup if and when Ovechkin breaks Gretzky's record, that might be a heck of a way to kind of celebrate that or to take advantage of all the hype around that if they could somehow convince Crosby to sign with him.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
Or dual Gretzky, Ovechkin autos, we'll probably see those too.
Yeah. It'd be very interesting. I have to imagine that Upper Deck has exhausted every resource they can to create an Ovechkin Crosby duel at this point, because they must know that card's demand would be astronomical, just considering there aren't any.
There might be something to the fact, though, that, and who knows, or this is all just pure speculation, but as Crosby's career winds down, which it is, he's still playing great. He's got, 90 points, so I'm not trying to say it's over, but he's 35 years old, and as the years go by, and as in life, you get older, you start to get a little bit more reflective, maybe, and who knows, his mind may change on some of that stuff.
I hope it does. We do find that a lot of players that don't sign when they retire, you start to see them back in sets, but we're seeing a lot more of that recently. Hopefully that happens, and then guys that aren't signing right now, like Patrice Bergeron, hopefully, he'll be signing again. And then the only other card I wanted to highlight for this is that, and I don't know 100% for a fact that this card exists, but on the checklist and on Beckett, they list a Marc-Andre Fleury honorable numbers as a 1 of 1. And I don't know why that card would be a 1 of 1. I tried messaging Grant Sandround, who probably would be the guy who would know why, because Marc-Andre Fleury never wore number 1 to my knowledge. I checked his hockey reference. So I would love to know if that card actually exists, what it looks like, why is it a 1 of 1? That made me go down another rabbit hole where people ask me all the time, not all the time, but enough where I've pondered this, is how many 1-of-1 honorable numbers are there? So I actually created a list. I went through all the checklists, and I've identified 12 1-of-1 honorable numbers. 2 of them are duals, and 10 of them are singles. So I'll just real quick go through them. 05-06, the Cup had Andrew Raycroft, David Abisher, and Roberto Luongo. 06-07 had just Raycroft and Luongo. I have seen the 06-07 Luongo. That card is a sticker autograph for reasons I'm not sure. Luongo doesn't have any on-card autographs from that year, so that's probably all I could get.
Yeah.
And then 09-10 has Steve Mason. 10-11 has Steve Mason. 11-12, you guessed it, Steve Mason again. Marc-Andre Fleury, for reasons I'll never know probably. And then there's a dual Steve Mason, Jonas Hiller from 11-12. And then the only other 1-of-1 honorable numbers that have been made were in 2016-17. There's Luongo, and then there's Luongo Brian Elliott duel. So those are all of the 1-of-1 honorable numbers. There's not really anyone in the league right now that wears number 1 who I would really feel like, oh, we need that card of them. But to me, those are very cool cards. So
yeah, very, very unique. And I was just going to say the same thing, that it doesn't seem like goalies really wear number 1 anymore. It's like the preference is in the high 30s now, or mid 30s, or even bigger number like Vasilevsky at 88 or something like that.
Yeah. So that's all I have for 11-12. Any other questions before we get to 12-13?
No,
okay.
No, let's keep rolling. This is awesome, Mitch.
Yeah, so 12-13, for those that don't remember, that was a lockout year. So the rookie crop in particular was pretty bad. I would say 12-13 is by far the worst rookie crop ever for a Cup product. They were pretty limited on rookies that year because of the lockout. They were also limited on products. So one thing they did was, instead of having a standalone release of Ultimate in 12-13, you actually got a 2-card pack of Ultimate in your Cup tin. It seems like nobody remembers that. Whenever I tell people there were Ultimate cards in 12-13 the Cup, they're pretty shocked.
Do you think that they felt like that the class was going to be weak, or that the lockout may have affected demand, so they wanted to spice up or juice up the Cup tins a little bit?
Yeah, and they were pretty explicit about that. They knew the rookie class would be not where it should be for a product to be in high demand. So they did a lot of things to kind of compensate for that. In my opinion, 12-13 the Cup had the most key additions to Legends signing. So I'll just skip to that. So here are the guys who got their first autographs in 12-13 the Cup. Teemu Selanne, Matt Sundin, Pavel Bure, Peter Forsberg, Theoren Fleury, and I got to mention my guy Andy Moog. All these guys had never signed in the Cup. So Upper Deck actually made a concerted effort that year to go and get these guys who they hadn't been able to sign previously. I mean, those guys have signed before the lockout, but not since 05-06 the Cup. That, to me, was huge. There's a lot of really big cards that come out of 12-13 the Cup in the veteran world.
I was going to ask about that. So of the first-timers, I'm assuming of the guys you mentioned, that Teemu and Bure are probably the most sought after.
I would put Peter Forsberg right up there.
Oh, yeah, Forsberg too. Okay.
So the cool thing about it was, imagine you're opening a box of the Cup. Before you open your actual pack, you open the tin, you open your Ultimate pack, you get a Wayne Gretzky Ultimate Signatures, and now you still have an entire unopened Cup pack to go into. So I don't know for certain, but I believe that the Ultimate packs were not hand-packed. So I don't think that if you got a Gretzky auto in your Ultimate pack, that meant that your Cup pack was going to be worse because you already got your quote-unquote like box hit. Because I remember seeing a couple breaks with really nice Ultimate cards, and then the Cup cards were also pretty good. So they didn't do Ultimate. That's the only year of Ultimate since it came out in 04-05 that they didn't have veteran auto shields, but they did have rookie shields. So you could get this didn't happen, but theoretically you could have had a pack where you open it and you get a Chris Kreider Ultimate shield, and then you get a Chris Kreider Cup shield in your pack.
Wow.
Because they were separate. Yeah. So I thought, that was a very cool way to do it. This is also probably the most sought after new subset in the Cup was the first year for the monumental patches. Those are huge cards. So the first year they had, the rookies. So I guess I should probably talk about the rookies first. Probably the biggest rookie. So there's 3 out of 99 this year. Chris Kreider, Sven Berkshire, and Jaden Schwartz.
Oh boy.
And then I tried to pick out the best other rookies. I promise these are the best names.
Mark Stone, right? It's got to be Mark Stone.
Mark Stone, I think, is the best. And then you have Torrey Krug and Tyson Berry are the next best, that's basically as good as it gets for the rookies. I mean, Jake Allen is okay, but you were really not buying this product for the rookie cards.
Yeah, you're buying for the vets. I have a kind of a big picture question that I should have mentioned a couple of releases ago, and maybe this is a Billy Celio type question. You might not know the answer. Do you know what the thought process is for how they decide who's a 99 or who's a 249? Any idea how that decision-making process works?
Yeah, so I believe that Billy doesn't do it the exact same way as someone like Carbon might have done it. The thing I do know about the process is that they pick it basically at the beginning of the rookie cycle. And it seems like they don't really have a way to change it if the player busts. So that's why you have a guy like Romanov this year who was already a bust by the time it came out. They build the product in advance. I know that Billy he built the 21-22 Cup product 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know who he picked, but you have to understand when that product comes out that it was built years ago. So you have to think, who did he think was going to be, the best 6 rookies at that time? And unfortunately, because of the delays, it gets released and you kind of have egg on your face because we already know. But usually you don't have that much retrospect to go back on to see how you did.
A great example from the recent release would be Jason Robertson, where you have a guy like Romanov out of 99 versus Robertson out of 249, where on face value today, that makes little to no sense. But given this product was probably designed or the set checklist was made 3 years ago now, Jason Robertson wasn't on anyone's radar 3 years ago.
It's an impossible job to pick all the right rookies. If you go back and hear the rookie crops from all the previous Cup sets, they never once got it right. It's impossible to prospect. We can all try. And a lot of people, they might criticize Upper Deck, how could you pick, I don't know, Yuri Talusti in 07-08. But I guarantee anyone listening, if they had to do the same job, there might be other out of 99 rookies that did not work. So it's important when thinking about that, that you take that grain of salt. No one has a crystal ball when they're building these sets.
You could take the view, too, that it's just, again, part of the big mystery and beautiful, imperfect science of hockey cards, that we have these kind of Romanovs that are out of 99 and a J-Rob out of 249. Maybe it's part of what makes the hobby unique. And in a weird way, I'm kind of trying to say, if everything was always perfect, would that somehow be a bad thing for the hobby too? I don't know, big picture, abstract type question. But
yeah, I'll admit there are some choices for those that I don't understand. Without getting ahead, years that we haven't covered, Victor Hedman in 09-10, he was a top 3 pick. He was good out of the gate. He's out of 249. I'll just say 13-14, one of my favorite players, Alexander Barkov, another top 3 pick. He's out of 249. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Probably because he's a Panther. I have to think that's a consideration. I'm not in the room when they make those decisions. I would love to know exactly the rationale, but unfortunately, that's probably not something we'll ever have.
Nope. But I think you provided some really interesting context, though. So thank you.
I do just want to real quick mention that 12-13 was also the first year of the Brilliance subset. Not a subset that I'm crazy about. So for those that haven't seen them, these are shadow box acetate signatures. I actually think the most recent one that came out is probably my favorite version of it yet. But since that's been in the Cup every year since then, I thought it was worth noting. And then I also wanted to highlight a couple more cards that came out this year that I think are really important. Probably one of my favorites is the Yager Lemieux Auto Shield. That's the first Yager Auto Shield in the Cup. And then the duel with Lemieux, I think that's an absolutely incredible card.
Is that a 101 or is that a 2?
Every dual shield in the cup is a 101 ever.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's only Ultimate that has the ones out of 2.
Oh, okay. I was mixing that up. So a card like that, and Yager is, I think, having in the last year a pretty big hobby resurgence. I would imagine that if that card went for sale or became available, that there'd be a lot of people in line to try to snatch it up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get. Oh, you know what? I just realized that I forgot to actually write down that it's also the first year for Yager autos.
Oh, nice.
That's by far the biggest introduction for a player. So 2012-13, the Cup, you introduced Yager to the Cup. He had a few cards before, but they weren't signed. So to get Yager, Solani, Bure, Forsberg, Matt Sundin. Another interesting card from that year is, so Matt Sundin actually has 2 limited logos. One of them is Leafs out of 50, but then he also has a Nordiques one out of 10.
Oh, wow.
And here's the cool part about the Nordiques one. I don't know why, because the Leafs one he didn't do this on. On the Nordiques one, he signed it on the patch.
Ah.
You guys might have seen that Andrei Svechnikov did this on his 18-19 rookie limited logos. But as far as I know, Matt Sundin did it first, 12-13. I don't think before that anyone had ever done that. I don't know why he did it, because he must have known not to, because he did it on the Leafs one. I think that's a very cool card. I don't know that any have sold publicly a very long time, so I couldn't speculate on value.
They haven't. And I was just going to make that comment. It's funny that you mentioned that. So the last one to sell that I see in Card Ladder was November 21 of 2013, where this is the out of 10 limited logo, so it'd be the Nordiques, and it went for $229. It would be, of course, much more at this point. It just goes to show like how rare these cards are and how sought after, and that once collectors get them, they're not traded like Young Guns. That's for sure.
Yeah, that I think is a very cool, important card. I think Nordiques cards in general seem to be going up a lot in demand. There's not too many of them, but you got Sakic and Forsberg and Sundin, like some really key players who have Nordiques cards. Even guys like Michel Goulet, who I think is really undervalued.
Well, Troy and I were talking about just the other day how you have the Whalers, Nordiques, and North Stars to just are these sort of like iconic defunct brands, but I just think anyone sees like a North Stars jersey or a Whalers jersey or Nordiques, it just puts a good feeling in anybody, right? And there's just such a visceral, I think, positive reaction even today to those brands.
Yeah, why do you think that is though? Because there's none of those teams won a cup, so it's not like these teams were like super successful, and then obviously they had a demise enough for them to move. I agree with you. I've had the same observation where people really seem to love those brands. Do you think it's just nostalgia?
I think it's purely nostalgia. Like you go the farther away from it, I think back at the North Stars. What glorious days. We forget they sucked for a long time. We could barely sell out the rink. Guess why they left. I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia though, and like you think about the Nordiques and the jerseys being Canadian. I mean, I think the farther we go away, the more nostalgia we get with those teams.
I would agree with that, and we can speak best, of course, because we're Minnesotans of the North Stars. Well, and when it comes to the North Stars, there's I think 2 really important factors. First, I'll say Troy's right. We forget that they were terrible. We forget how we got literally destroyed. Probably the worst Stanley Cup Finals ever. In 91 when Mario Lemieux owned us in a big way. But when it comes to the North Stars, almost anyone that was around at that time, we all feel like our team was stolen from us. Literally robbed by Norm Green. And so it's really hard to like Dallas because of that. Because our arena was fuller, Troy, I think. That it wasn't like it was empty. It was Norm Green was a butt and took the team to Dallas. And then the second thing, and this is maybe more just my opinion, but I know Troy shares it too, is we hate, I love the Wild, but I don't like their name. I don't like their logo, and I really don't like their colors. And it's like, and so when they wear like the reverse retros that are the North Stars colors, it's like everybody goes bananas.
Yeah.
Or in the consensus around here is why don't you just go back to those? Because It's like we're like an ugly Christmas card is like our colors right now. But that's a total tangent. And we'll get off the soapbox.
I imagine they don't do it because the Dallas Stars still have all the trademarks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's too bad. But so do you think there's more North Stars fans than Wild fans?
Well, it's an age thing. You'd had to have been around in 94 or 93 whenever they left. But if you go to this game, there's just as many reverse retro jerseys as there are the regular kind of standard colors. And I have not yet met a Wild fan that does not prefer the North Stars color palette to the whatever we have, like weird Christmas colors now.
I agree. I also prefer the North Stars. Okay, so let's get back to the Cup. All right, there's one other card I wanted to highlight. It's the only year where Sergei Fedorov had a property of. He's a player that never had a Cup auto to this day. He has never signed for the Cup. So that, I think, is a really important card of Sergei Fedorov, a real legend of the game. That's probably the number one Fedorov card that I would want. I don't think he has a solo shield, so to me, that's a huge card. But that pretty much closes out 12-13. A really interesting year. I mean, it really kind of set the stage for having great veteran classes again. I think before that, they were kind of weaker. They're going to get all these like legends from the 90s in that year was pretty big for the longevity of the value of the brand.
All right, let's move on.
13-14, the Cup came out October 22nd, 2014. So they actually came out the exact same date, back-to-back years, October 22nd. I thought that was kind of cool. I'm realizing we did not guess how much 12-13 costs. So let's just do back-to-back. So any guesses for 12-13?
It's my time to go first. So they knew it was bad, but they tried to compensate by adding Ultimate in there. So I'm going to say, but they don't want to go back in price. I'm going to say $450 and then $475.
Okay.
I'm going to go $425 for both just because I don't want to think too hard about it.
Okay, so 12-13 was actually the cheapest one. It was $369. And I think that really highlights the importance of a rookie class for determining the price of a box. And, we'll really see that when we get to 15 and 16. But 13-14, in my opinion, so that's $409, 13-14. In my opinion, if you look at the actual depth of the class, 13-14 is maybe the best rookie class ever. Here's the out of 99 rookies. Even though Nail Yakupov was a bust, here's the rest of the out of 99 rookies. We have Valery Nichushkin, Nathan McKinnon, Alex Galchenyuk, Tomas Hertl, and Sean Monahan. Now, before I get to the rest of the rookies, a funny thing that happened with Sean Monahan and Brendan Gallagher, their Cup RPAs got lost in the mail. No one knows what happened to them. Upper Deck couldn't find them. So they actually remade both cards with new images and sent them back out.
Wow.
There might be a guy somewhere who's just sitting on 99 unsigned Sean Monahan Cup RPAs. I don't know what anyone would do with those. I don't know what they would command. As far as I know, I could be wrong. As far as I know, those cards have not surfaced.
Interesting.
Well, we saw a couple months ago before it had to have been this fall.
It happened with this year.
Yep. Yeah, where it was a Dallas Stars player,
Thomas Harley.
Thomas Harley, yeah, and they were unsigned. It was like the button memorabilia cards that somebody had uncovered or were stolen in the mail, something like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of speculation that Harley lost them on purpose because he hates signing.
Oh,
I love it.
But I can't say that for sure. But I do know it's he apparently just hates signing autographs.
I hates money, I guess.
Yeah. So, I don't think he's getting a huge contract.
No, I don't. They don't get paid that much, but I'll do some signing. I can sign for him.
I'm not going to name this many players again, but I just want to kind of emphasize how deep this 13-14 class is. So here's the out of 249 RPAs from 13-14 the Cup. Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, Vladimir Tarasenko, Philip Forsberg, Seth Jones, Dougie Hamilton, Elias Lindholm, Charlie Coyle, Tom Wilson, Frederick Anderson, Jack Campbell, Brock Nelson, and Matt Dumba.
Wow. That is pretty extensive.
Yeah.
So this is a tiny tangent, and I promise I won't go long, but because I'm oblivious, I never knew that Seth Jones is the son of Popeye Jones, the NBA player. And when Popeye played for the Denver Nuggets, he became friendly with, was it Sakic? And then that's how his kids got into hockey. Lo and behold, Seth Jones has had a pretty good NHL career.
I have heard that story before. I think that's super cool. I mean, his brother Caleb, also on the Blackhawks.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I have heard they're kind of kooky characters. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
They're like big conspiracy nuts, I've heard.
Oh, well, their dad's name is Popeye, so we'll start.
Yeah. To me, like, that was a crazy rookie crop. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. And then the only other kind of thing I wanted to note from that year is that Upper Deck, for the first time, upped the print run of a lot of, I guess you can call them core subsets. So the signature patches previously had always been out of 75. This year, they made them out of 99. The cup enshrinements were always out of 50. This year, they made them out of 60. The Foundation's auto jersey cards previously had been out of 10. And then this year, they made them out of 15. So there was a lot of pushback from this year for upping the print runs on stuff because, of course, the higher supply, the lower the demand. They were kind of devaluing a lot of the subsets by making more of them. If Upper Deck decided tomorrow that limited logos were going to be out of 75, which, by the way, is what they were originally numbered to in 0304 Exquisite, but I think people would riot. People would absolutely lose their minds because it inherently devalue limited logos.
Can I ask you a question about that, though? And it's kind of like a big picture cup question. It's easy to draw these parallels forward to Connor Bedard whenever, however many years from now, the 2023, the cup comes out. I mean, we still have 2 cup releases, of course, before then. But how do you think Upper Deck should... So let's say the hockey market doubles. There's twice the hockey collectors in the next few years because Connor Bedard's crazy. In your preference, how should Upper Deck treat the increased demand for the product with the cup? Do you think that, would you prefer that they print more cards and keep the price lower, or would you rather have a $3,000, $3,500 tin of the cup?
You know, it's an interesting question. Personally,
something has to give, right? Something has to give. There's...
Personally, I would prefer that the cup maintains its luster and they don't produce way more of it. I think they'll probably do, and we'll get to this when we get to 15-16, I think they'll probably do what they did with McDavid, but even way more so.
Yeah, okay.
And if you don't know what they did with McDavid, we'll get to it, but it's pretty nutty, I think.
All right, well, digression over. We'll look forward to that.
I don't have too much else to say about the 13-14 set. I really like the design of it. The cup RPAs that year, the patches were shields, which I think looked really nice. They didn't do a whole lot that I think is noteworthy that year, but I guess that's a good segue to getting into 14-15, which, as I said at the beginning of the show, I think 14-15 the cup is the single biggest, I guess you could call it a retooling of the product. They made a large number of significant changes in the product that year, more so than any other subset to this day, in my opinion.
Do you know what led to that? Like what the catalyst for these changes was?
I can't say I know, honestly. Maybe they just decided, let's shake things up. I really don't know. I'd be interested to hear from someone that was part of that. 14-15 the cup came out September 30th, 2015. You want to take guesses on that sale price, pre-sale?
I'm going to stick with $475.
Yeah, I was thinking like $500.
So it's $469, so very close. There's a lot to go over here because they did so many new things. In my opinion, probably the single biggest change that they did this year was introducing Exquisite to hockey. So 14-15 the cup, first time you ever saw an Exquisite hockey card. There were 3 different types of Exquisite hockey cards, and they're all very different. First one is what are called Exquisite Art of the Game booklet autographs. So these are all numbered to 3. Upper Deck hired artists to actually hand paint a trifold booklet of 7 different players: Alex Ovechkin, Bobby Orr, Carey Price, Grant Fuhr, John Tavares, Mario Lemieux, and Patrick Waugh. The player signed it. On the back of the card, it's signed by the artist. in my opinion, some of them look really, really nice. Some of them do not. I'll leave it at that.
Lemieux looks weird.
Okay.
I found the Lemieux one. His face looks weird. But it's a cool card. Cool concept. Cool concept, but man, his face looks weird. Anyways.
I have heard from people that worked at Upper Deck at that time that those cards were very, very expensive. So they probably won't make them again. I don't think they're super in demand. I've never heard someone say, oh, I really would love to own one of these. People that have them because they're so rare and they're such great players value them pretty highly. I don't know that one has sold publicly recently. I have not seen a sale of it.
Are you in general pro exquisite in the cup, or would you prefer that the brands are separated?
So I believe they've stated for a fact that they will not separate the products. I actually really like exquisite cards.
So do I. But the one thing though that I'm not even sure how I feel about is they've tended to put exquisite like light cards. It's almost like a brand hierarchy where you have like Ralph Lauren and then you have Polo and then all the way down to like Polo Sport, where you see like in Black Diamond and other sets that they have exquisite cards that don't include memorabilia or don't include autos. And I just worry that they've watered maybe the brand a little bit in that respect. It seems like it is so related and part of the origin of the cup and it's one of my favorite brands too. So I'm glad that we're on the same page there, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that they have probably overdone it, in my opinion. Black Diamond ones in particular, I think that's a product that I did a poll on my Instagram page last year where I asked, do you like this product? And I just went through every single Upper Deck product that was made every year. And Black Diamond was the least liked product that Upper Deck makes. In my opinion, it's sold as a high-end product, but it doesn't have high-end qualities to me. So it doesn't really have a niche that really the collectors want. I find that the people that are buying Black Diamond are people that want high-end cards of the new rookie class before they have Future Watch or Premier or Ultimate or Cup card. So it's a way to get early, quote unquote, scarce high-end cards of rookies. You compare like even the exquisite cards from Black Diamond, they still look way nicer than the non-exquisite cards from Black Diamond.
I think they're the best part of Black Diamond. But okay, yeah. So getting back to the cup, so the cup's been out, what now? So this is probably like the 9th release at this point of the cup, and then all of a sudden exquisite cards start to appear. What was the reaction to exquisite cards at the time when it came out? Were people really excited about that, or were you more trying to figure it out, what it meant?
So 14-15 happens to be the 10th anniversary of the cup. They kind of were celebrating that with the exquisite. That was kind of part of the sell of 14-15 exquisite of the cup was the exquisite cards. My recollection is that people were pretty excited about it. And then after 15-16, which we can get to, because at the time in 14-15, it was only in the cup. And then in 15-16, they put it in ice. And I think the hype for it died down a lot when they did that. I think at first people really did like it because there were only 3 cards. So you had the painting cards and then you had the RPAs. So these replaced the gold versions of the cup RPAs in previous products. So up until this year, every gold cup RPA was out of the player's jersey number. But now, and still to this day, it's the exquisite card that is the RPA out of the player's jersey number. And the reason I like them so much is because A, they're more limited than any of the true cup RPAs because they're out of 99 or 249 and no one's wearing 99, so they're all out of less than 99. And the patches are way bigger. Compared to a cup RPA, an exquisite patch is like 3 times as big, which to me should be pretty important. The current sales of exquisite RPAs don't really support this outside of players that have really low jersey numbers. But I think they're very important cards. I'm not an investor. I'm 99% collector, but I think that exquisite as a brand will have the same kind of renaissance that like precious metal gems have had once that group of collectors gets a little bit older in the same way. And then I think exquisite hockey cards, at least the important ones, are going to see a huge boom. That's just my prediction. That's not investing advice. That's just me being in the hobby for 20 years. That's what I think.
Well, here's what I would support that with, and I talk about this a lot with Exquisite and why it's one of my favorite brands, is that there's 50, and this the Exquisite brand, not Exquisite Hockey, of course, but there's 15 sales of Exquisite cards and card ladder for over $1 million. So you talk about the legacy of a brand, and at some point, I think to what you're saying is that will trickle down and start to matter from a hockey perspective.
I think so. I mean, I know a lot of people are trying to speculate what is the next PMG. There might not be a next PMG. I think that might have been a unique situation. But I do think that exquisite hockey cards are underappreciated. And then the third type of exquisite card that came out in 14-15 was the veteran autographs. It's a 15 card checklist, and they're numbered 1 through 15, and then the cup RPAs start at 16. So it's considered one exquisite set because they're continuations of the other. But the 15 veteran autographs, they're 15 of the best players that Upper Deck has signed. So there's Yager, Gretzky, Howe, Orr, Ovechkin, Crosby. One that I'm trying to build currently, so I will say that. So if you're listening, these cards suck. You should not bid on them. But I'm just kidding. That was a huge component. So with them replacing the gold RPAs with the exquisite RPAs, they retooled the entire true rookie parallel structure. You have the exquisite jersey number. You have your base out of 249. That stays the same. But now you have a new card, which is an autograph with no patch of players that have RPAs out of 25. So that's a new type of card. Before that, you would never have a rookie auto card with no patch if the player had a patch auto. And then you have the gold patch autos now all are out of 10. Instead of being numbered to the jersey number, they're all out of 10 now. And then you have the red ones out of 3, and those have tags. And then you have the black foil 1 of 1, which that's the same. So there's always been a 1 of 1, no auto, no patch rookie of a player. But then you have a rookie shield 1 of 1, which previously had never existed. So before 14-15 Cup, there were no single shields in the Cup. It was all, duals, or I actually forgot to mention the triple booklets that were in 12-13. Those are not super in demand, even though they're the only triple shields in hockey. Or I guess National Treasures has it, but at least for Upper Deck. That was kind of a huge thing because that also applied to the veterans, where now you have single veteran cup auto shields. And a lot of people really prefer those to the duels, where a lot of the the pairings on the duels don't make a ton of sense. So now you can just get, for the first time ever, a cup auto shield of your favorite player, not have to worry about some random guy you don't care about being on the other side of it. I think also in general, people don't like having to flip over a card to see the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that before too. And I'm just kind of just scrolling around and looking at cards from this year as you're talking. And well, I guess I have 2 points, and it's going back to the exquisite RPAs where they're landscape or horizontal cards. And so there's a little bit of a distinction there. And going back to, and I think you made this point in the part 1 of our Cup Masterclass, where even though the Cup is the most elite hockey product, it doesn't mean that every card is unattainable or unaffordable. I'm looking at my guy, Leon Draisaitl, who's scored more goals than any other player in the last 5 years in the NHL. And the top sale ever for his exquisite, and he's number 29. So it's a very short printed card, right? Out of 29, RPA is $1,600.
I was the buyer of that card.
Oh, it's your card. Nice. So it's you bought it in the PWCC Weekly at the beginning of March. Then it's just like, gosh, is that really all that this is worth? Because it's such a important player in the league, and it's such a beautiful card. It's so limited. And so, and you made this too, that even going beyond like Draisaitl rookies, like you can get really, really nice cup cards for under $100.
Yeah.
If you want to start cup collecting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was very happy to buy that Draisaitl exquisite last month. To me, that doesn't make any sense. I know that there have been private sales of that card that were a fair bit higher than what I paid. So I think if that card were to go for auction, maybe on eBay versus PWCC, it would probably do a lot more. Just my opinion.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
I love
I took you off track there, but I just wanted to make that point that these cards are just, we talk about it with the cup with such reverence and with such high esteem because it is the most important hockey set. But it's not like you have to spend $200,000 for any of these cards we're talking about.
I buy cup cards very regularly for under $50. I mean, it's very attainable. I mean, for the price of 2 blasters, you can get a cup card.
That's crazy. Yeah, and you're not going to get anything in a flagship blaster.
Yeah, so that's another way of thinking about it. I haven't even talked about the players. So obviously we talked about Draisaitl, who was a redemption. He was also out of 249. His RPA was not out of 99. Another out of 249 who's very famously a redemption in this product was David Pastrnak. And it took Upper Deck years, literally years, to fill this redemption. And when they did, they put stickers on it. So this was kind of like whatever fiasco we all witnessed with Kaprizov this year. Because that was kind of part 2 of what we saw a couple of years ago with Pastrnak. Because he was the first, I think, I could be wrong, I think he was the first Cup RPA to be a sticker. He was a huge player, especially because, when the product came out, we didn't really know that Pastrnak was going to be a star. He had potential. Yeah. But by the time his redemption got filled, we already knew that this was a huge card. That was a pretty big hobby story at the time when those Pasta redemptions got filled. So the actual out of 99, so it was an interesting class because the top 2 players actually were not out of 99, but at the time, this was seen as a loaded class, and for various reasons, a lot of these players have not panned out as well as we thought they were going to at the time. So I won't even Shane Gostisbehere was a guy who at the time, that was a big card if you pull a Shane Gostisbehere. He ended up not being a perennial Norris contender like we thought he would be but he was electric his rookie season. And then so here are the out of 99s. You have Johnny Gaudreau, Bo Horvat, Teuvo Teravainen, Sam Reinhart, Aaron Ekblad, and Jonathan Drouin. And outside of Drouin, most of these guys have remained very relevant in the game, but not quite to the level that we expected.
Yeah, not like top tier hobby guys. Good players, but just not real chased from a hobby perspective. Right.
And then probably the third best player in the class behind Draisaitl, Pastrnak, also out of 249, Andrei Vasilevskiy. We can argue where Vasilevskiy ranks in the league ranking of all players. It's hard to compare goalies to forwards, but that's a huge card. I mean, if you compare the sales of Vasilevskiy RPAs to Sorokin or Shesterkin, you're like, well, why? Because Vasilevskiy actually has the accomplishments that we're anticipating from Shesterkin and Sorokin. So this could maybe tie into your Bermuda Triangle theory about Florida players.
Yeah, do we say that in recording? Maybe that was pre-recording, so I'll mention it. That Troy and I have a theory that the state of Florida is now the Bermuda Triangle for hobby relevance. If anybody goes to Florida, they immediately become irrelevant. And I know that that's a large, generalizing, sweeping statement, but if you really kind of think about it and are honest, it's kind of true.
As a Panthers fan, I'll pretend like I didn't hear that.
It just makes your guys cheap. So it should be beautiful news for you.
Yeah, I've definitely picked up a number of amazing Barkov cards that I think should be worth way more than they are. You can get a Barkov Cup RPA for a fourth the price of Jason Robertson.
There you go.
So, and then also, I just want to mention Evgeny Kuznetsov, another key rookie from that card. That card is criminally cheap. I think you can get one for like $75.
Wow.
Kuznetsov Cup RPA. I don't know why, but he's a good player. And then, so going back to the actual changes of the Cup that year, another huge change that they did that was a very positive, of course, was a lot of people think that the Cup limited logos for rookies have always been game used. Before 2014-15, this was not the case. Almost all of them were photo shoot rookie limited logos. But since that year, they've all been game used. which to me makes them, I think they should be considered the best RPA of a player because it's the only one that's game used, and they're very scarce. I find myself letting people know that a lot. I think a lot of people do have the impression that limited logos have always been game used for rookies, but it's only since 14-15. So if you're going to buy a Malkin or a Kopitar or a Stamkos rookie year limited logos, make sure you know that those cards are photo shoot worn. I can imagine people recently have bought those cards thinking they were game used and they were upset when they turn the card over.
It's one of the oddities of the hockey hobby. Again, going back to Connor Bedard for a minute, who's going to be what I consider a transcendent player, meaning that he will transcend just the hockey fans and hockey hobby. And he's a guy that can bring people in. And as we were getting more and more into hockey cards, it's like you have to learn all these sort of outlier situations where you have, so wait a minute, the most valuable cup card is a RPA out of 99, and it's infinitely more valuable than maybe a card out of 10 that's a rookie patch auto or even a game used patch auto. Like you're talking about, where if you're a basketball card collector, you're used to, well, if it's out of 99, it's, and then card B is out of 10. Card B is going to be infinitely more valuable than out of 99. And in our sport, in our hobby, that's just not the case.
Yeah, it's very puzzling, even to me, seeing like what Ovechkin Future Watch PSA 10 sold for last week is absolutely mind blowing. I know there's not 1,000 10s, but that card is not scarce.
Yes.
Before we move on to 15-16, I just want to point out that for some reason, I don't know if maybe Upper Deck bought a collection of rare goalie sticks, but that's the only year that you can get, for example, a Pelle Lindbergh property of. That's a huge card. I know where it is. I'm begging the guy for it. He's probably not going to move it to me. But, 14-15 property ofs are loaded with rare goalie, like Pont, Sachuk, Ed Jockman. There's also Doug Harvey, who's not a goalie's defenseman. But these are all like cards that I think should be in a museum. It's amazing that these cards exist.
Well, Pelle Lindbergh is Troy's guy, so I'm sure his ears perked up on that.
In my opinion, the Pelle Lindbergh property of is the best Upper Deck Pelle Lindbergh card ever made. He's never had a cut auto in any Upper Deck product for I don't know why. You can get them.
You can get them for sure.
But they've never had a Pelle Lindbergh cut. That's the only property of. They've had some other memorabilia cards, but no like huge patches or anything like that. There's some stick cards in Splendor, but other than that property of is the only what I would call a grail level card of Pelle Lindbergh that Upper Deck has made. So I think that's a very important card, so I just wanted to call that out. And I also wanted to call out that there is a one-of-one exquisite RPA that year, or Brossoit, the goalie that year for the Oilers, the 101. So I don't know where that is, but if anyone wants to make the set, you need to own that card. So there can only be one complete set possible. I don't know if it exists, but whoever owns that card, maybe they have the complete set before we move on to 2015-16. Moving on to 15-16, the Cup. That came out December 1st, 2016. So they were a few months late on this Cup release. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. I can't imagine. But this is the one that almost since we started our masterclass this is the conversation I've been waiting for. So I'm excited about this.
I'll just say as like a little bit of context leading up to it. If you weren't following hockey or the hobby at the time, we knew for a couple of years before McDavid was a rookie that he was going to be one of the greatest prospects ever. I would say in my lifetime, McDavid is the best prospect in terms of how highly regarded he was before he played a game. I think Crosby is pretty close, but in my experience, I think McDavid even a little bit more than Bedard, in my opinion. But they're very close. I was going to ask you that because
remember, we weren't like deep into the hobby at the time, but I remember the McDavid factor just walking through Target and thinking, oh, maybe I should look for some hockey card packs. So you think that now we know the hobby is different today than it was in 2015, so that's going to add a bunch of juice to the Bedard factor there. But you still think that McDavid was even more hyped than Bedard is right now?
Yes, but like you said, there's way more people that collect hockey cards, so the volume of the hype is going to be way higher for Bedard just because of where prices are for things today and how many more collectors there are today versus how many there were in 2015. But I think if you're just thinking about how good is this player going to be, I think the expectations were maybe a little bit higher for McDavid than for Bedard. But I think they're very close. Let's take a guess for what this one cost on release day. And I'll just let the cat out of the bag. This was the most expensive Cup release ever. And it's entirely driven by the rookie class. So any guesses?
I'll let you go first, Troy.
So when you said most expensive ever, does that include the 1,200? Okay, up and down that point, $750.
Yeah. Okay.
That was my guess, so I'm going to say $725.
$789.
So I think the first masterclass we might have talked about the most expensive box of the Cup. Like we were just talking. So I feel like I cheated on that one. I think that was stored in my memory bank somewhere.
I don't think I said. Maybe I did. So, and just as a caveat, obviously the price of a box is going to be different depending on where you buy it from at the time. So the way that I found the prices was by using the Wayback Machine on Dave and Adams and just going to those prices, just so everyone knows where I'm getting my information from. So these are all Dave and Adams prices. I want to play a new guessing game with you guys. How many different Connor McDavid cards are in 15-16 the Cup?
Well, if you were going to ask me, I just researched how many different Connor McDavid cards there are total in his whole career. It's 5,200. Was it 5,287, I think? And the number of autos is 1,250 something. Now, I don't know. I have no clue how many of those are Cup cards.
25.
25, okay.
That's my guess. What's your
guess?
What
are we guessing? I forgot. I was so excited.
How many different McDavid Cup cards are only in his rookie year, 2015-16 the Cup? So like a limited logos is one, a signature pack is two.
I'll go 35.
56.
Oh, wow. Way off.
So when we're thinking about, you asked me earlier, how is Bedard going to factor into the release? I didn't look up, how many Crosby cards are in 05-06 the Cup. It's way less than 56. I can tell you that. It's not even close. So in terms of what we might see in 23-24 the Cup, when that comes out in 2030, that will be...
That was a very sly...
I totally missed that. It just it then rung in my head what he said, or what you said. I just started laughing internally. I love it.
You got to think they're going to print more of it than they did for 15-16 the Cup. But if you kind of going outside of the Cup, just as like a more macro hobby thing, if you look at Upper Deck Flagship, 14-15, just going off of Pop Reports, was one of the least produced series of flagship Upper Deck products. And then you get 15-16, where the number of McDavid Young Guns is probably, in my estimation, like 60 to 70,000.
Well, there's more than 10,000 gem mints between PSA and Beckett. It's like 2,500 PSA and about 7,500 Beckett 9.5.
Yeah.
So that would support your theory.
So just thinking about how much they ramped up production. And then I remember at the time, you went on to the forums or you're in hobby groups in 2015, the whole 14-15 season, there was always this feeling of, well, I'm going to save up for McDavid. And you kind of get that today, people saving up for Bedard. Like, people were building these war chests just to buy cases of any McDavid product. I remember when 15-16 Series 1 came out, the price of the Oilers group break spot was almost the price of like 4 or 5 boxes out of the case.
Wow.
So, I mean, people, and they would sell instantly because that's all people wanted. People ripping cases upon cases to get McDavid. I mean, obviously Series 1 was the biggest, but when Cup came out, that was like a real rush to get the out of 99 RPA. And people were hyper focused on getting that card. It's interesting, the other McDavid cards at the time did not really command the value that, you see today in a relative sense. I did find a sale for a McDavid Monumental Patch Auto out of 6 from 2015-16 the Cup, which today, that's one of the best McDavid RPAs you could possibly get. But I found a sale in 2017. You guys want to guess what that sold for?
I'm guessing we're going to be depressed. It's probably $1,500. What's your guess, Troy?
I was going to say, first number that came to mind was like 1,200.
It was a little over 2,000. So maybe the way I framed the question made you guys
no, we're
go
just
low.
bad guessers.
But
yeah.
It was really just the out of 99 that was doing the bananas numbers that at the time, these days we see a lot, but at the time, hockey cards were not selling for $50,000.
And I'm assuming that you're confident that today at auction, that Bedard Monumental would be 6 figures, right? It would have to be, wouldn't it?
I don't know. It's actually, you see that Kaprizov Monumental that's been selling over and over again, but like that card is between like 3,000 and 5,000. Is Bedard 20x? I don't know. Maybe.
No, I was thinking that. Sorry, I meant the McDavid. So the McDavid that sold for 2,000.
I know one sold for 20,000, like 2021. I think I could be wrong about exactly when that sold. So I don't think even today it's a 6-figure card. I do think if you're placing bets on what cards are going to be worth 6 figures in 10 years, it's probably a pretty safe one.
Well, and again, you go back to that oddity in hockey where the all-time high sale for any Cup card is the McDavid out of 99, a PSA 10 that this past summer at the end of July sold for $228,000 in Heritage Auction. So again, you compare that to, it's like if I never knew the values, if I was coming into hockey for the first time and I was shown 2 cards, the McDavid Monumental Auto and the RPA out of 99, I'm pretty sure I'd probably pick the Monumental and say, this is the one I want.
Yeah, it's a way cooler card to look at. It's hard to compare with the out of 99 Cup RPAs because those are the cards that everyone knows about.
Yes.
And those are the cards that everyone wants because everyone knows about them. So they have this iconic quality to them that there's almost an issue with, because the cards are so scarce, not enough people see them to know that they actually want them.
Well, yeah, we've talked about a lot in the 10-month history of our show that the 3 most important cards in hockey are the Young Guns, the Future Watch Auto out of 999, and the Cup Troop RPA out of 99 or 249. And I think what you're talking about, Mitch, is really an important part of why those 3 is that they're not so rare that nobody knows about them, that they're fairly common. And so they have that brand recognition out there.
One thing I would say to that, and not to go off on too big of a tangent, but just that those things are not set in stone. Future Watch autos used to sell for what I would say normal amounts relative to other cards that are have similar in scarcity. And then I think really COVID, they all just kind of exploded. People decided, okay, the Young Guns and the Future Watches, those are the ones that are going to somehow attain this iconic quality and this huge demand. If you're a collector app, my personal advice is that these things could change. People can decide, oh, you know what? There's 50,000 Young Guns of this guy. Maybe that is a bubble. So just something to keep in mind. Even though these cards have this iconic quality now, those are not set in stone. So that's just what I would impress onto your listeners.
I think that's a great point. 3 years from now, it could be one of those could be out of the picture, and it could be an OPT Platinum Parallel or something that we would never consider today.
So going back, I mentioned when I polled all my Instagram followers about their favorite sets, the set that had the highest percentage of people that liked the set was OPT Platinum. So maybe that could be something that's a little under the radar now that you might want to get in on while it's still affordable. Not investment advice, just observations from a collector. All right, obviously 15-16 the Cup is not all just Connor McDavid cards in every pack. There are other cards, believe it or not. You wouldn't know that if you watch people opening the product at the time, because that's all they cared about. But let's get into the rookie class outside of McDavid. It's not terrible. You have Panarin, Nikolai Ehlers, Max Domi, Dylan Larkin out of 99 on top of McDavid. And there's also a Jack Eichel out of 99 patch with no auto. So for those that don't know, the first year that Eichel was in the league, Leaf/ITG managed to get an exclusive contract with him. So for the first year, all Eichel cards, any 15-16 product, you're not going to get an Eichel autograph because he had an exclusive contract, which he then got out of the following year. And then Upper Deck started a trend that I don't like, where they've recreated the exact same card, but with an autograph. So they're doubling the population of the card. Half of them have autographs, half of them don't. And to me, it's interesting because these cards, the autograph versions, in almost every case, are worth more than what I would consider to be the true rookie cards. Because the question I ask people a lot: what really is a rookie card?
Yeah.
At what point can you slap the rookie word on a card and the hobby will say, okay, but it's not really a rookie card? Like, what does it mean to be a rookie card? With the cup, the way that the sets have been delayed, cards are coming out in a player's third, fourth year. At what point do we say, okay, part of the rookie quality to this that makes it important is that the card came out in the year that they were a rookie? To me, I've gotten in arguments with people about this, but when you have an update card in 16-17 the Cup and you already made that exact same card the previous year, what makes that a rookie card? Just because you wrote the same thing on it? I don't know. So this is one of a number of reasons why I kind of have shied away from rookie cards, because I personally think that the idea of a rookie has kind of been really watered down. I don't even know what it means anymore. So I think that card in particular, when they made the update with the autograph, what kind of sparked that change. So I did want to highlight that.
Going back in time, what do you remember? How much was the hobby split between McDavid and Eichel? Was it like a Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf situation where it seemed like half people were convinced Peyton Manning was going to be the better player and half people were convinced Eichel or Ryan Leaf? Or was it
there was
more...
no comparison.
Okay.
Even though Eichel was clearly at the time considered the second best prospect in the class, if you pulled an Eichel card, even though they weren't autographed, it was still considered like a good hit. Like that's exciting. That's great. A lot of people think that in a lot of other rookie classes, Eichel would have gone first overall, but I can't recall ever hearing someone say, actually, I think Eichel's better than McDavid. Or even, I don't even remember someone saying that they were as good. It was really clear to everyone that McDavid was the guy that you were going for. I mean, there was a little moment where McDavid broke his collarbone in his rookie season and he missed a couple months and Eichel looked pretty good. But even then, I don't think anyone would have preferred Eichel over McDavid.
And then one last kind of like looking back question about this release. What do you recall? Was there sticker shock with the price being increased so much? And how did the hobby react to the price per tin, or was it kind of everyone kind of got it because McDavid was coming out in the Cup?
Yeah, I think it was expected because, even a year or two before the product came out, everyone had been anticipating and excited for this product. And there was so much demand, anything with Connor McDavid in it, that I don't recall people being like, this is crazy. This should be the same price as 14-15, where at the time the best rookie was Johnny Gaudreau. Like, no one thought that. I mean, maybe I can't say no one, but that was not the overarching feeling in the hobby. Even myself, I'm not a guy who rips wax, but every time I went to Target in 2015, I bought a blaster of Series 1 trying to get a McDavid. And if people that know me heard that, they'd be shocked because I often am a strong critic of Young Guns, but I was buying boxes of ice and ripping a ton, even though I'm not a guy who likes to rip product. Even I could not resist the allure of pulling a McDavid card.
So did you get one in one of the blasters at Target?
I never pulled a McDavid Young Gun. The best McDavid card I pulled that year was out of Contours. I pulled a proof rookie out of 50.
Okay.
All right, so those are the out of 99 Cup RPAs, or just RPs. There's also Connor Hellebuck, Shea Theodore, Mikko Rantanen, recently becoming a relevant card, the Linus Ullmark is from 15-16, and UC Saros and Matt Murray. So a really solid crop for goalies. Hellebuck, Ullmark, Saros, and Murray. I mean, that's better than most years, I think. was kind of an understated part of that rookie crop.
100%. And you now Rantanen this year too with more than 50 goals and 100 points.
Yeah, so I would say because of the price of 15, 16 boxes, if you don't pull a McDavid, you probably are losing money, even if you pull, a Rantanen or a Saros or something like that. But there's still other great cards to be had in that rookie crop. There's one card in particular I want to highlight. There was a recent sale of it. The Pavel Bure limited logos. This is only year out of 10. And the patches seem to all just be crazy patches. To me, that's a very special card. So that is the only year you can get one of those. So I just wanted to call that out. So another thing is that 15-16 had exquisite shields. So there's a couple more exquisite cards. There's way more today. 14-15, it was just the RPA. 15-16, they added the shields, and they also added a set called Endorsement Relics, which is just basically patch autos. There's a rookie version and a veteran version. So now there's a couple more exquisite cards in the cup. But there was, before that, they put exquisite in ice, which is why I was buying ice cards, because I wanted a McDavid exquisite card.
Gotcha.
And then the last one I want to highlight that they introduced in 15-16 is the show. So for those that don't know, this is an autographed insert set, and it's based off of actually a type of Upper Deck authenticated product that they made called the show, which is it's a big white surface, and they have the athlete sign it in charcoal, and it has like a nice border. And then I believe it was Billy Cilio's idea to create this card where, hey, what if we had these and we just put it on a card? I think these cards look really nice. Do you remember in episode 1 of the masterclass, I talked about how they put Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan and LeBron cards as the tribute? So the show is the only other time where they put those Upper Deck spokesmen. And even then, there were people pulling Tiger Woods, the show cards, and not happy that they weren't getting a hockey guy out of their cup 10, even though Tiger Woods is one of the greatest, most legendary athletes ever.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so I have another kind of big picture cup question, but it feels this is the appropriate time to ask it. At some day in the future, if and when the cup card ever sells for $1 million or more, would you guess it would be a Connor McDavid card from this set? Or would it be a different one?
Because it really just depends on what cards go for sale when. I think for a card to go for $1 million, considering the highest hockey sale so far has been, about a fifth of that, we would need to see some other type of boom in the hobby. And then the right cards would have to become available for sale at that time. Like I know in 2020, the 97 out of 99 jersey number McDavid RPA sold, I believe, in Leland auctions. And that one did a little over 100,000. So about half of what that PSA 10 sale was. I think that card would outsell it if it sold at the same time. I think people would rather have the PSA 9 jersey number than a PSA 10.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. But in terms of what I think it would be, it's hard to say because obviously I don't think there's a card right now that would sell for $1 million.
But, no, this is in the future. This is at some point, if and when and it may even, I guess I would look at it like, well, it's either maybe some legendary Gretzky, really rare cup card, or it's a McDavid, or it's probably some player in the future. Maybe none of these guys would ever.
Yeah, I guess my guess would be maybe the McDavid or Bedard exquisite shield auto are maybe the most likely candidates. I know the McDavid shield has been on eBay for a long time for $5 million or best offer or something like that. If that card actually went to auction during this potential boom period, it's tough to say. Even among high-end collectors, there's debate about whether that card's even better than his Ultimate Shield. A lot of the high-end guys actually prefer the Ultimate Shield. So it really depends. I remember we talked about the game-used Crosby-Ovechkin dual rookie shield. Maybe that card would do it. There's people that say, well, it's not autographed, so it's not the best.
It's also funny, too. It's on one hand, it seems like a ridiculous conversation. But on the other hand, let's picture we're football collectors for a minute. We'd be talking about $1 million for a quarterback that's played 4 games at this point. You know? So it's it shouldn't be that far of a stretch, although it kind of feels like it, given where the values of everything are right now. I don't know. That's just, we can stop this, but it's just where my brain goes and kind of fun questions that I ponder.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think these are great questions to think about. It really would just depend on the timing of it and what cards people decide to sell when. I think maybe like the most expensive cards will just never go for sale publicly.
Yeah, well, which is part of the hobby too, where all the big cards in other sports always go for sale, right? So the LeBron logo man gets pulled, and sure enough, it's for sale. Or the biggest exquisite RPAs, where hockey, as we've talked about a lot, is much more collector driven, and people tend to, like our friend Les, right? He hoards already unlimited logos, and good luck ever prying those from his grip. But it just makes, and I think that's again a beautiful part of the hobby. So, do we have anything left to cover? Or are we kind of at the point of wrapping up? Where are we at with 2015?
I could keep going on and on, but I think that's probably a good place to call it for 15-16.
Man, I think you outdid yourself, Mitch. This is pretty amazing. The time has flown by, and I think again I go back to part of why we do our show, and especially this masterclass, is that, and I'll kind of reference quick. You talked about like what is a rookie, where they just put a RC logo on a card 3 years later, and people assume it's a rookie. And I think a lot of that, there's so many people that, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but are just, Troy and I included have been here. We're just naive, right? We don't know any better. So with a guy like you being so generous with your time and willing to come on and share the knowledge that you've accumulated over 15, 20 years now about, or almost 20 years about these products, is such a gift to the hobby. And we can't thank you enough for your willingness to do that and the seriousness for which you've taken this. And so again, it makes me excited for part 3, which will come out hopefully pretty soon. But just want to say thank you.
I really appreciate those kind words. It's important to me that it gets done right. I just want to impress, on all your listeners that I tried to be as authentic as I could. I'm hyping up cards that I'm going to want to buy later, and maybe this will hurt me, but I think that overall it's more important that people just get the right information. So I'm just happy to do that. I think there's a lot of important stuff in there that people should be aware of, and hopefully it'll lead people to make smart and informed decisions when buying cards for their collections.
Oh, again, thank you. And one last thing I want to mention to people too is that Mitch has been even further or more gracious with his time and has joined our Discord server. So for those people that do choose to support our show and help us to produce content like the Masterclass series, I'm sure that once this episode drops, Mitch, you'll have a lot of people asking you questions in there. So again, thank you for doing that as well. And we'll be back, I'm sure, in a month or two down the road and with part 3 and to wrap up our Cup series.
Hey,
thanks again,
Josh, Mitch. Mitch, you want to plug your Instagram?
Oh, yeah, yes.
My Instagram account is just my last name, Gropman Cards, Gropman_cards. I also run a couple other Instagram accounts. One of them is called the Hockey Card Hall of Fame. And that's just an account where I try to showcase what I think are the greatest cards ever made. And then I have another one called Fake Hockey Patches, where I've over the years accumulated a number of photos of swapped patches. And I just post them there so that there's a record of them and people can know which patches are at least confirmed fake. I have a lot more that I haven't posted just because I don't have the originals. So I don't want, I don't have proof that I can show people and I know the patches are fake. So I'm just debating posting them anyway, and just hopefully people trust that at one point I had the proof, and then Photo Bucket went down and I lost a lot of it. Yes. And then I also run, if you're interested in a Facebook group that is specific to the Cup, I run a Facebook group where you can only talk about the Cup or buy, sell, trade. Those are various ways that you can connect with me. I'm very happy to talk to collectors about the product or anything, really. If you have any questions about anything I said, feel free to reach out and be happy to chat with you.
Well, thanks, Troy, for bringing that up, because I'm an idiot after a guy spends 2 hours on our show talking about giving his time. So I apologize for that, Mitch. So go follow Mitch at Gropman Cards, right, on Instagram. Then you have the Hockey Hall of Fame Instagram account, which is amazing, and everybody should follow as well. And then again, you're even more giving of your time and your energy to help prevent people from buying fake patches. And so people should follow that Instagram account as well. All right, Mitch, well, we'll talk soon. And again, thanks for doing part 2. Can't wait for part 3.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, Troy, what do you think? Learn anything?
I did. I learned lots of information. I actually love him talking about just what changes are there from year to year. And because I'm one of those, you kind of get in the habit where you think things are relatively stable. They might introduce one or two things, but you see with the cup, even designs can change pretty drastically year over year. And that's the stuff that it really intrigues me and I would have no idea about. And then just the rundown of players and like people that haven't signed, legends that haven't signed, but now in this release, they're there. That's the stuff that's really cool to me.
There's a connection that I've been making to today from what he was talking about when he was covering the 2015 release of the Cup with Connor McDavid. And then more importantly, the year before that in 2014, in how people were war chesting, people were anticipating the McDavid release, and that the 2014 release of the Cup was just not maybe as chaste or relevant. And I kind of wonder if we're in that period now with and just in general, not just with the Cup releases, but every release, like from SPA that'll come out in a couple of days through all the new releases through the end of the summer. Is it just going to be more, more hockey, but let's get to Bedard kind of scenario? And if we'll look back 5 years from now and kind of think that was the case at this time. That sort of stuck with me. Mitch, of course, did an awesome job. Amazing information. And we'll have him back probably in the next couple months to finish this series and for part 3 of the Cup Masterclass. We're going to roll into new product releases. Again, I just said 2021 SP Authentic. The release date is looking like Wednesday. We'll be en route to Toronto to the Spring Expo. But we do plan to buy a box or two while we're there, hopefully cheaper with the conversion rate. That's sort of our plan. And we'll keep you up to date and have some pack opening videos related to those boxes. I did find something kind of interesting, though, Troy, on new product releases. So I was poking around Dave & Adams this morning, and lo and behold, presale pricing is up for 2023-24 Upper Deck Series 1. For a hobby box, the presale it's like $119.95, so they'll call it $120 US. In my mind, that means one of two things. That because there's a lot of conspiracy about now, or not conspiracy, there's a lot of thought out there that they're just going to jack the price up for Connor Bedard to a crazy amount. And it doesn't appear so. It's maybe $5 more expensive, but I don't see a huge price increase. So either it's not going to happen, or you should buy presale right now, and because who knows what the price could be in the fall. I'm not saying do that because I have no idea what's going to happen. I can't formulate an opinion on this. So I don't know if you do, Troy. And I guess before I get your thoughts, the other thing we have to mention too is there's no guarantee Connor Bedard is in Series 1. I saw on Blowout Forums a thread that I don't know the guy, and but apparently had a response from some guy at Upper Deck that said that the plan for Series 1 is to have holdover rookies, I think is the way. So that would be kind of like Matt Boldy, right? And would indicate that, no, I don't think he explicitly said Connor Bedard will not be in Series 1, but he was definitely intimating that. And again, I don't know if this guy's legit or not. So chalk that up to speculation at this point. But it is a good sign that the price, at least right now, is $120 and not like $350. Maybe that some people would have thought. You do have to remember too, though, that this is the new configuration for Flagship Hobby. So it's 12 packs instead of 24. You basically get less base. You have 3 hits per pack instead of 1. So you should get 36 hits a box instead of 24. So it is that new configuration. But all in all, pretty good news that the presale pricing is not out of hand, right?
Yeah, it just depends what he ends up in. If he's not in Series 1, this is a moot point, and it will be interesting to see where he ends up. I don't really have a thought. It's kind of hurts my head trying to think this far into the future. But
is it tempting, though, for you to, and this is us having like a Gongshow financial meeting on the air, but to buy a couple presale just in case it ends up being like $300
I mean, there's
next fall?
Just you're hedging your bet, right? Or you're hedging, which is always usually a good thing. And just think about guys that buy cases and cases. Do you go in and buy a case? I don't know. You just said it was hobby boxes. They didn't have cases up.
They do have the case price.
Oh, do they?
I don't remember what it is.
Okay. So that's interesting. It's the game you play, right?
This feels weird. I'm really excited about this. We're going to end the show with personal pickups. Now, if you've just started listening to us in the last 6 months, you probably have no idea what we're talking about. if you're a true Gong Show OG, we did this almost every show because at the time we started the Gong Show, we were much more collectors. Not that we still don't want to collect, but the show has such a grip on our time. It's been very hard to squeeze that aspect of our life into it. But this week, Troy, I actually made 2 decent purchases. And so I'm doing personal pickups, man. And we'll see if you have anything to add in a minute. So I did buy 2 cards. The first one is a 2022 Upper Deck Matt Boldy, a Young Gun exclusive out of 100 raw, picked up at a local card shop. Pretty excited about that. And then, Troy, you had mentioned him earlier, Keandre Miller. I got a 2020 OPC Platinum Seismic Gold, so it's out of 50 raw. I wasn't planning on getting this, but I was on ComC and it was like $60, and I was looking at all the other Seismic Golds, and it was way less proportionately. You know, when you're kind of like trying to compare them to like a Jack Hughes, but just like value to stature. I don't know if I'll hold this one for the long haul, but I just figure for given where Seismic Golds and OPC Platinums tend to be going, and there is a fair amount of hobby hype for Keandre Miller. I just thought at $60 it was a smart buy, but we'll see. Did you buy anything last week?
The last thing I bought, I already talked about, was the Mike Bossy all-time feature watch out of 10.
You're not buying the limited logos on eBay right now?
And I sit there and look at it and watch that price keep going up and up and up. No, I'm war chesting for the expo. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Well, while I talk, look up that limited logo.
I'll do it,
see where it's at. And if anyone hasn't gone to see it, Mitch actually, when we were taping the masterclass, had alerted us to this. There's I can't remember what year it is. Troy, you'll have to tell us, but a Bossy limited logos with a ridiculous patch on eBay that almost from the second it was posted looked like a slot machine. It was like ding, 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 with all the people bidding on it. And I think when we first saw it, it was like at $200. It's got to be in the 4 figures now, I'm guessing.
Yep, $1,545 US with 1 day and 3 hours left at the time of recording this, which is Sunday evening, 6:27 Central Time.
And what year and is it out of? What year is it?
2010/11.
Well, that's our show for Monday. If you like the episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show and want to support us and want to chat with us on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server, please consider a $5 a month donation. Join our out of 99 support level tier on Patreon. You can go to hockeycardsgongshow.com and click on the Become a Patron link to support us. Or you can go to Patreon website at patreon.com and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. There's also a link in the show description for whatever podcast app you're listening to us on right now. And finally, in our Instagram and TikTok profiles, there's a link to Patreon in our link tree there. If you're not following the Gong Show on social media, please do so. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a production of Dollar Box Ventures LLC. We'll see you all on Thursday.